defensive plays.
Huge block shots.
Blocked it right at the end there. Made some good deflections on potential. But, they took everything they had to hold them off. There's no question still that Vegas has more firepower. It just shows you if you play a great team game from the goalie out, you can have a chance. If you have timely goals, it can work. Now we'll see if they can, find a way to win the series. That's still another thing, but that's a big road win to go back home.
Well, they have to be feeling confident. I mean, that is it's got to be a pretty confident group, and they're going home. Have they announced? Are they increasing attendance?
That's a great question. I was just thinking the same thing.
2,500, I think, at the last round when they finally let people in.
Yeah.
I don't.
Not,
Are they going to increase? I mean, that in that place, as you know, that's not a whole lot. I mean, it's obviously at least people
arena.
In there.
It's
but
a
it's huge arena. I mean, have they upped it to maybe 5,000 or anything? I haven't seen anything.
It's sad because I got to tell you, that place is one of the top 5 to watch a game in. It's just fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And that place would be. Can you imagine how rocking that place would be?
Oh yeah,
under normal circumstances. So it's too bad. I gotta believe that's. How could you not say that's an advantage for Vegas? I mean, I know life isn't fair right now, but like Vegas has this raucous atmosphere where they're going crazy.
Yep.
And Montreal isn't even half full in a cavernous, humongous venue.
Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any. I don't know how you couldn't say, right?
Come on.
It has to be an advantage for Vegas. I mean,
yeah.
How could you possibly say 2,500 or whatever their number is it going to favor Vegas? The fact that they don't have to play in front of a loaded barn in that hostile environment. Because you're right, everybody says it. It's one of the toughest plays and coolest places to play in hockey, right? When it's
oh, yeah. It's almost over the top. Your brain hurts at the end of the game.
Yeah.
When you go to a game there, because they crank it Vegas style just to excess. There's loud, and it's like we're going to make it louder than you even want it. Even with a little artificial juice in there.
Yeah. Greg Wyshynski, who we had on yesterday, just tweeted out in this segment, Carolina GM Don Waddell has made a decision on the future of Rod Brind'Amour. What do you think Carolina's going to do?
Well, if they do anything but give him whatever he wants, then...
You think they're going to give him an extension, or you think they're like too rich for our blood?
Well, remember the history of Carolina, right? Their best player, Canadians tried to raid with an offer sheet thinking they were too cheap to match it. Carolina matched it. Let's take a look a little closer. They eliminated this is a small thing, but I think it gives you a little window into how they operate there. This isn't a franchise swimming in money, right? They eliminated the radio position on our broadcast team, and they let go a legend in Chuck Caton, right? Because they were basically too cheap. Then they have one of the best broadcast teams in the league, John Forsland and Trip Tracy, and they lowballed John Forsland. So he becomes, number one of the best national broadcasters we have. He's on the call of the Vegas Montreal series, and he takes the Kraken job. So before you answer, I'm a little skeptical because what Rod Brind'Amour wanted was for them not only to extend him, but take care of the entire staff. They wanted the staff to be given raises, deservedly so. So what's the verdict?
Well, there's a reason I asked because, yes, most all franchises is like, duh, the job Rod Brind'Amour's done. Well, of course they've given him a contract extension and whatever he wants. But Carolina has decided to, yes, agree and give him a contract extension. And so, yes, they have given him the truckload of money.
And I would have been a little surprised if it went the other way because they've been saying throughout the week that this looked like it was going to get done. We've been talking to Elliot about that. His feeling was it was going to get done. Rod Brind'Amour, they are really fortunate that he just loves living there, raising his family there. And I think it was a matter of taking care of the assistants. That was the biggest thing. Because he could have gone for the money. Because he would have been the most sought-after coach out there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, he would have been.
All right, here's one for you, Darren. Who has the best record in Major League Baseball?
The best record in Major League Baseball?
In Major League Baseball, who has the best record?
San Francisco Giants?
There's a reason that I'm asking. Nope.
Because we had Kirk Casale on.
No,
By the way,
they
won. They won again.
Yeah.
Arizona's lost 22 games in a row on the road. I mean, holy cow! I could tell you who's the worst team in baseball.
Well, there's some competition. For
I know. Their Pittsburgh
and Colorado. Ooh,
I think it's over in the American League,
yes,
so I'm going to go with.
It's
the
a team
Rays.
that you've had some fun with at their expense.
Oh, the White Sox?
Yes, it is the White Sox.
Record?
Tony La Russa and the White Sox.
Wow.
Who you poo-pooed when last year I said, hey, they're going to make the playoffs. You watch out. White Sox are on the rise. White Sox.
I'll have to see it
When
to
do they
believe
ever
it.
get it right? I got to see it to believe it.
Yeah. Maybe they've gotten it right with La Russa.
Best record in baseball.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if I would have thought that, but they have the best record in baseball.
Okay.
Kind of a weak division. Top-heavy division.
You watch your mouth.
Well, I mean, the Indians are good, but then the other – remember we had Caleb Joseph on in spring training?
Yeah.
And he was like, I think you could put together a 90-win team of available free agents just because there's probably 10 teams that aren't trying
right
now. Mm-hmm. And those are some examples in that division. They're not really investing. They're playing the long game, going cheap right now.
There's no doubt. It is top-heavy. And it's literally just the top. I don't even think the Indians really are that good. But, yeah, they've won.
They're best of the rest. Yeah,
they're the best of the rest.
They lost their guy for a little while, Bieber.
Yeah.
Not Justin.
Shane. All right, speaking of baseball, let's go to Omaha. Omaha. Let's go check in with a guy. There was a huge announcement on the Vanderbilt side of things when it comes to broadcasting. We're going to tell you what the heck we're talking about on the other side, because we have to go to Omaha to do that, the home of the College World Series. As you listen to Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Thanks, Paul. We had fun with Paul Feinbaum yesterday on the show talking about this new 12-team college football playoffs. Pretty interesting stuff. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase. What was the deal, Elijah, with the abrupt ending to the music?
Computer literally just turned itself off.
Oh, okay.
Man, I was going to say, that was not a professional fade out.
I was in the process of fading it out, and all of a sudden it just goes black.
Oh, so the computer just took a break.
Yeah, the computer said, I think I'll pass. Yeah.
That's kind of like all we needed was the needle scratching along the record there for the abrupt ending there.
That's what it felt like.
Counting crows.
Yeah. It was just getting to the best part, too.
I know. I had the Omaha vibe going.
I was feeling it, and then all of a sudden,
throwback to the 90s.
Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase here on this Thursday. Darren McFarland and Willie Daunic here with you. Let's head to what Peyton Manning said a lot in his career. Omaha, Omaha, Omaha.
Was there a guy at the airport that does that, just dressed up in his Peyton Manning uniform, just yelling that out in the airport to everybody?
That and cut that meat. Which might be more appropriate for Omaha, actually.
Yeah. They do have some good steaks in Omaha.
You may recognize the voice. Kevin Ingram is on the line with us, and there was an announcement regarding Vanderbilt voices yesterday. So, actually, I'm going to let you do the honors. Kevin, by the way, congratulations. Well-deserved. No surprise on this show that decision was made, and we're happy for you. But tell everybody what you announced yesterday.
It was announced yesterday that myself and Andrew Allegretta are going to be kind of co-voices of Vanderbilt sports. Andrew will do he'll be play-by-play for football and for baseball on radio and for SEC Network coverage of basketball for men's and women's. I'll do men's basketball on the radio. I'll do baseball for SEC Network Plus, and then I'll do sidelines for football. But we're also going to do a lot of other content, podcasts and different shows and some fun features and a lot of digital things. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Just really, really honored and happy to be part of this. And I've been doing the games for several months now, but throughout that time it had been sort of a temporary thing. But to have it be more permanent, to have a job at a place I've really grown to love and working with people I really like, and just excited about the whole thing. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys saying that.
Must have been a nice ride, a sweeter ride for you going to Omaha, knowing all that.
It was kind of weird. It was weird, actually, because I knew the announcement was supposed to happen somewhere around 3 o'clock, and we were on the plane. We took off from Nashville probably about 1:30. I was like, when we land and I take my phone off airplane mode, there is no telling what's going to be on the other end of this. so we landed, it had happened, and they made the announcement. And gosh, I've heard from so many people just having nice things to say, and congratulations and everything. It's been really cool.
Kevin, this is a shame on me moment. I'm going to say this out loud. It's not like it's a big secret, but it still pains me to say this on the radio. I've never been to the College World Series, and I've got to fix that here in the near future.
Man.
I know. It's embarrassing to even say it, but I haven't been, and so I want you to tell me what I'm missing out on.
Well, I went in 2019. I came out for the final series. That was the only time I'd been. I wanted to go the other times when Vanderbilt was here, but just didn't really have an opportunity. I got to say, it is one of the great events in American sports. And we've all been to everything under the sun, whether it's a Super Bowl or a Stanley Cup Final or World Series, all that stuff. And I know all three of us have been to all those things. But I would place this right up there at the top with most anything I've been to. And a lot of it in 2019 was I got to be here to see Vanderbilt win the championship. And I sat in the booth with Joe and went down on the field and saw everybody. And that part of it made it really cool. But, man, if you're a baseball fan or just any kind of sports fan, you should really come out here and check it out sometime. The ballpark is awesome. TD Ameritrade Park is just a beautiful stadium. But the cool thing about it is everything's right here in downtown Omaha. The airport is about 5 minutes away. You can get in and out easily. You can just walk everywhere here downtown. You can walk to the ballpark. You can walk to great restaurants or whatever you want to do. So, man, it's just such a neat thing because you see fans of all the different teams, and just the atmosphere is super cool. But, yeah, to be here 2 years ago when Vanderbilt won, and, the thing was I was thinking about when we were coming in yesterday, when I came out here 2 years ago, my plan was to come out on, they're playing the championship series against Michigan Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday if necessary. My plan was to come out on Monday and see the games Monday and Tuesday, and hopefully Vanderbilt won, and then come back home. Well, my flight was delayed, of course, in Chicago. There's bad weather or whatever. I got to Omaha on that Monday night just in time. Literally, as I was pulling into town, they turned the lights off at TD Ameritrade Park. It was over, and everybody had gone home. So I missed the first game. I went to the second game, and Rocker pitched, and Vanderbilt won to force the final. And so I get back to the hotel, and I call home, and I'm talking to Amy, and she's like, "You're not coming home now. You got to stay and see if they, see him win. Like, you got to figure out a way to stay." And so I made all the arrangements and stayed out for one more day and got to be here to see him win it all. But Darren, to answer your question, it's one of the great things in sports. You should come out here and see it once. No matter who's playing, you should come one time at least and check it out.
Maybe if it's Vanderbilt and Tennessee, we should just pick up the dang show and just take it out there and just do it.
The whole state might be here if it's Vanderbilt and Tennessee.
Darren, I'll have a suggestion for you. This is what you need to do. You need to take one of your teams and play. Just start organizing maybe a year ahead of time, or maybe months ahead of time anyway. Just regardless of who makes it, play in the Slump Buster tournament in Omaha.
Oh,
there's a huge tournament, and throughout because the World Series goes for 2 weeks, so they have like 2 different tournaments that go on, the different age groups, and they just have games going on all over the area. But that's the idea: is you play,
wow.
You're going to play 4, 5, 6 games. They guarantee you a certain amount of games, and then when you don't play, you can go to the games. You can go to the World Series games. That's what we experienced 2 years ago. Our team went out there. We had a blast. We played for a week and a half, and we went to a few games. It was awesome.
My ears are perked up, man. That sounds
Slump Buster.
really cool.
A different definition of the Slump Buster that Mark Race and some other baseball players refer to. Not that kind of Slump Buster, but that is the name of the tournament.
Oh, you went there. Okay.
I'll tell you what else is going on out here. While we're here, these next few days, they're having the U.S. Olympic swimming trials.
Oh, yeah.
The finals of it is at that arena that's right behind the right field wall. I mean, it's across the parking lot. I think I may go over and see some of that. I've never been to a swim meet. And so I was thinking, if I'm going to go to a swim meet, this is probably the one to go to in the United States. So I may go over and check out some of that.
Oh, I would recommend it, Kevin. I'll give you a funny story. I guess it would be 5 years ago because it was the last Olympics. The last Olympic trials, they had that going on. And some friends of mine from high school, from Winter Park, my high school, the guy was a great swimmer there, and he's now the coach. And they were driving from Orlando, Florida, all the way to Omaha, and they stopped off in Nashville. And they were talking about this place. It's a state-of-the-art venue. And I would have to say, I've been to some swim meets, Kevin. Like live, being there, it is fun. I mean, you won't know what the heck's going on at the start, but that you'll figure it out, right? It's no different. Like the TV coverage has always been great, because they tell you exactly who you're looking for. The people in the middle 3 lanes are usually the best going on. Yeah. But I would highly recommend that, just to say you've done it. I think you'll have a great time.
Well, yeah, like I say, I'm like you because I was thinking that same thing. It's like, if I went to this, would I be able to tell what was going on? And I was like, I really that's kind of beside the point. It'd just be cool to watch these world-class swimmers that get out there and do their thing. I was in there's some of them were staying at our hotel here, and when we were checking in yesterday, I was coming up in the elevator. I rode up with a few. They were from Florida. And they're wearing like their Florida Gators, swimming gear. It's like, and then I was watching some of it last night. It's like, man, I think those are some of the dudes I saw in the elevator earlier. So yeah, there are all kinds of swimming people all around here.
Were they in the full gear? Were they in the Speedos with the cap on and the goggles?
They weren't in the Speedos yet. No, they weren't like in the big puffy winter jackets like you see some of them wearing at the when they come out. Some of that stuff cracks me up, man. You see some they come out in like the puffy jacket and then they get ready to make this big entrance to do their swim.
I believe if I think this was yesterday in the 200 individual medley, Alex Walsh won, and she's in Nashville. I think she's at Virginia, but she is. I think she was at Harpeth Hall. I think
that's a big swim program.
She
Tracy Calkins.
She's a Nashville girl. Alex Walsh. She won yesterday.
She's in. She qualified. She's in. Mm-hmm.
That's a cool
story.
Like
all the big names have been here, like Katie Ledecky and
Sure.
And then the big guns on the men's side and everything. Yeah, all the big ones here. I tell you, Brooke Forty, Pat Forty's daughter. She swims at Stanford, and I know she's been participating in some of the events, and I think did really well in one of them. I believe it was yesterday, and has a chance. It's been neat to see him on Twitter. He's covering as a reporter, but also there sort of a fan, sort of a dual role. That's got to be special to see your daughter in that spot.
When you think about how difficult it is to get where you are in college baseball, they're taking the 8 best teams in the country, and you have a long journey to get to that point. To now know this is the 5th time Tim Corbin has done it, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? I mean, you think about the success that he's had, and to get back there now for the 5th time.
It really is, Darren. And you think about where this program was about 20 years ago, and where it is now. It's amazing. To think that breakthrough, they finally got to the World Series in 2011. Even after having some great teams with David Price and some of the previous teams, back in the early years when Coach Corbin was here, it was a big deal just to get to the regionals and then to the super regionals. That one year they made it and played against Texas in the super regionals, and even though they lost, that was a really big deal. And now getting to Omaha is kind of the standard, and it just feels like there's such a dividing line in making it to the super regionals and making it to Omaha. To me, I equate it to in college basketball. That regional final game is such a dividing line in how you feel about your season. There's such a big difference in going to the Elite Eight and going to the Final Four. And to me, it's the same thing in baseball. But to see what this program has become and the 2 championships and 5 trips to Omaha, it's really amazing.
Kevin Ingram is on the line with us out in Omaha, home of the College World Series. And it's pretty interesting, Kevin. They made East Carolina look like they weren't a great offensive team. They actually were not strangers to scoring runs throughout the course of the season, and they scored only 1 in the Supers, which says a lot about Vanderbilt. Well, they're going to have their hands full again with Arizona because Arizona was the top offensive team in the country. How does Vanderbilt try to go about trying to slow down the Wildcats? I don't think they're going to hold them to 1 run, but, I didn't think they would hold East Carolina to 1 run in 2 games.
Yeah, I didn't think so either, Darren. And you got these 2 big guns at the top of the Vanderbilt rotation, so that's a good starting point. You got Kamar Rocker and you got Jack Leiter. Those are 2 things Vanderbilt has in its arsenal that I don't know that any team has a better 2 than those 2. But Arizona's lineup is unbelievable. I mean, look at their team batting average, 329 as a team. I mean, that's unbelievable. I mean, usually you look at the season box that has all the season stats in it, and there's a line there that shows where all the regular players, the ones that play most of the games, and then you have the reserves down below that line. There are 2 or 3 players below the line that have played a lot of games and still have batting averages over 300. Everybody above that line, that's the regular group, has a batting average of 305 or higher. And I know people look at on base percentage and slugging as much as they do batting average now in OPS. Jacob Berry, a 359 batting average. He has 18 doubles, 17 home runs, 70 RBIs in 61 games, slugging of 692 and on base of 448. Those are some pretty impressive numbers right there.
That's like Barry Bonds on the roids kind of numbers right there.
That's big head Barry.
Size 8.
But Kevin, this is one of the things that I think about with that is in Omaha, as you know, you've seen it. It's a big park, right? It's not a hitter's park by any means, and so pitching and defense are, I think, really important. And you can try to neutralize an offense to some degree, although those numbers are so impressive. But here's what I thought about, and we were trying to ask Tim Corbin about this. He sort of hinted that Javier Vaz, a guy that has sort of emerged at the end of the season and the postseason after being on the bench most of the year, because of his defense and because he's given him some good at-bats, especially in that outfield to cover ground, you might see them put a little premium on defense there.
Yeah, Willie, and it's the same way in any level of baseball. When you get to the postseason, so much of it is about pitching and defense, and what you got in the bullpen and how it all plays out for you in terms of using your pitchers the right way. But there's a lot of ground to cover in this ballpark. Now, Bradfield and Thomas in center and right, Enrique and Isaiah, man, they can cover plenty of area. But, playing Javier Vaz in left, it really has been interesting. I mean, he'd only started one game throughout the season until just the last couple weekends. And he's a really good left fielder. He's kind of a versatile guy. You can play him at second base. He's played infield some too. But, also a guy, even though this is his first year playing at Vanderbilt, he's been around. He played at LSU Eunice. He's from Huntsville. He transferred. But, the thing about him is, he gives you some speed in the outfield, but he also gives you speed on the bases. And a guy who can just put the ball in play sometimes when you're trying to manufacture runs. You saw it in those games against East Carolina where you just needed to put one in play, hit one, to the infield with, a chance to get a run home from third, and he was able to deliver there. He's done it a couple times this year where he just put one in play and put pressure on the defense. They threw one away, and 2 runs come around to score. Saw that earlier in the regional. But, I think part of it's going to depend, too, on the health and status of Tate Kolwick. If he's healthy and can swing the bat and play, you're going to put him back at second base. Then you have some decisions to make as far as your DH spot. You're going to have Parker Nolan in the lineup one way or another, whether he's at second base or third base or in a DH spot. Troy LaNeve has been another guy who's come on strong at the end of the season. Jack Bolger's had a good year, so you're going to have some options there. But I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Javier Vaz play some more left field in a ballpark, which, as you described, it's gigantic. There's a ton of foul territory. The pitchers can make mistakes in this park and not get burned by them every time, and that's not the case in some of the places you see around the SEC.
Yeah, if you hit a home run, you've earned it at that park. You've got to really hit it. And Kevin, you just touched on another thing that I think is a big thing to watch when you see how Tim Corbin builds his teams, and it's about the layers of the roster. You just mentioned it. He's got some versatility, right, to be able to put his best players out there. He can move guys around. Parker Nolan, you just mentioned it. He can play second base. He can play third base. Vaz can play second base. He can play outfield. He likes to recruit guys that he can move around to try to get the best athletes, the best overall players on the field. He doesn't pigeonhole guys who can only play one spot. And so I think that's a big advantage he has.
Yeah, I think so too, Willie. And, you see them in fall training where they play everybody at a variety of positions. And it's interesting, too. You got a lot of guys on this team who have been catchers. Daunic Keegan came to the program as a catcher. Same thing for Jack Bolger. They were really highly rated catchers coming out of high school, and none of them have done very much catching. Dom caught a game back earlier in the regular season, and I don't think Jack Bolger's been behind the plate at all, but they're really versatile guys, and all these infielders, you can plug them in at different spots. And it's interesting, too, with so much shifting being done on the infield, that it's almost like you have to have guys who can play different positions because even if you're, say, playing second base, you're going to play some shortstop or vice versa. If you're playing third base, like Jason Gonzalez, you see him play in the middle between second and third a lot of the time. So you have to have guys who can move around and play in different spots, and they do a great job of this. And their program is always, if you look at their players and kind of like if you saw Vanderbilt's team lined up and you saw another team lined up, Vanderbilt's group always looks very athletic and put together, and guys who've spent time in the weight room. You don't see a lot of the kind of big burly guys like you see around on some of the teams around college baseball, which I think are really entertaining. But Vanderbilt's guys have that look, and just that versatility always serves this program well.
Well, here's the last one, and Kevin, I knew a little bit about this guy, but it really hit me the day that you had a basketball game, and I filled in for you to call Vanderbilt against your beloved alma mater, Western Kentucky. I know you really missed being there on that day. But Christian Little was the pitcher. It was his first game, and so I got my first glimpse of him. But in the game, Enrique Bradfield hits a ball. It's just a routine base hit. It's maybe 6 steps from dead center. And I'm like, hey, there's a base hit, Enrique Bradfield. And then I started laughing because Enrique Bradfield tries to stretch it into a double. And it looks like it would be the most insane thing. Darren, it looks like maybe one of your 9-year-olds just lost his marbles for a minute. And it's like, why is he trying to go to second? But he thought he was going to make it. Like it was the most routine single to center that you've ever seen. And he got thrown out. But I was amazed at how close it was. And I was like, my goodness, this guy can absolutely fly. This guy is doing things that nobody else on the field can do. First of all, baseball needs more guys like that. I just hope that they can find more players that play like that because it adds so much energy to the game. But you must have had a blast calling games of his this year because you have to expect the unexpected.
That's right. And he puts so much pressure on the defense. He gets on base, and the pitcher starts throwing over the first 20 times, or they don't pay any attention to him at all, and he steals second and third, and the next thing you know, you got a runner 90 feet away. You remember back when Ricky Henderson played?
Yeah.
They had what was called the Ricky Rally, where he'd like walk and he'd steal second and third and
right.
score
Just
on
takes over the game. It takes over the entire park because there's nobody in the park that can take his eyes off him for 1 second. It just takes over the game. You can't put a price on that.
Yeah, I started calling it the Rique Rally because it's the same thing. He gets on base, he steals second, the catcher throws one into center field, and next thing you know, he's at third. Then he can score on a bounce out to the right side. He is so fun to watch. He plays a great center field. And talking to Tim Corbin about him, he's like, man, we're just scratching the surface on what this guy can do. One of the highlights of the season, I believe it was against Alabama, he had a home run. Like he hit one to right field, it just barely got over the wall, and everybody just went bananas because it was so funny. It was so fun to watch that. But he's one of those guys, and you've seen him over the years. You watch baseball, you just sort of root for him to hit one in the right field corner so you can watch him run the bases because man, he can cover that ground so fast. I mean, he can score on a hit that's maybe not a marginal double. He can score from first on that. And that makes all the difference in the game, especially in games like this where scoring runs is going to be such a premium in this big ballpark, and you're not going to be able to rely on home runs. And you're going to have to manufacture some runs. Enrique could make all the difference in this World Series.
I think you're right. I think in that park, that's a big one.
You remember I asked Corbs about him because he's a freshman, and he just jumps off the screen at you. I mean, if you watch him for 5 minutes, he grabs your attention immediately. And Tim said he's the only player on the team. This is what I was like, wow. He's the only player on the team this year that played every single game. He's a freshman at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And he played in every single game. That says a lot about him.
The only thing he didn't lead him off in the first few games. He had to earn his way up to the top. When you knew after a few games, you're like, this guy's going to be batting leadoff. Yeah. Here very, very soon.
He batted eighth through the probably the first month or so of the season, but then in the opening series against South Carolina, in SEC play, they moved him up to the leadoff spot, and he's been there ever since. I mean, you kind of knew it was a matter of time. They were sort of letting him, find his way batting down in the lineup, but you knew the top of the order was where he was going to be.
How many times have you seen him hit a chopper, and they still should get him, but they rush the play and they bobble the ball? There's that factor. And how many times, Kevin, have you seen him either trying to take an extra base or steal a base where they throw the ball, the guy makes a great throw, and you're thinking they're going to get him, but he's just moving at a different speed? I think the example would be the head-first slide in against East Carolina for that big run in the second game. You're like, there's no way he's going to make it. But he's just traveling so fast, he just beats it somehow.
Yeah, that play against East Carolina was amazing because they had their infield way in, and Keegan hit that ball to shortstop. I was like, oh, man, he's going to be out. There's no way.
There's no way. He's out.
And even in real time when I saw the play, I thought he was out.
Yeah.
But then you watch the review, man, it was a perfect slide. And he got his fingertips just on the bottom of the plate ahead of the tag. There's no way he should have been safe on that play. But that's one where you're going on contact, and he gets that big jump. That was a huge run in that game. I mean, that second run to make it 2-0.
Kevin, I guess we're done, and we're going to let you get back to the festivities in Omaha. By the way, who's going to win? Who's going to win this weekend's major? Who you got?
Oh, I mean, Phil Mickelson's got to win, doesn't he? I mean, it's a Torrey Pine. Well, he knows that course better than anybody. I mean, just a young guy like Mickelson in the field out there. We're all kind of. I'm quite a bit younger than you two, but we're all kind of around.
That's true. I don't know if that's true.
Think we're breaking up here, Kevin. That's a little. You're getting a little frisky out there in Omaha. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I will actually be hitting that milestone a little bit later in this year of 2021. But didn't it kind of give you a little bit of hope though when you saw Phil win the PGA? I was like, I think I'm going to go hit some balls tomorrow. So I come out at the driving range on that Monday after Mickelson won. I was like, oh yeah, man, it's back. And then the next day, I got my shoulder in traction, because I forgot that I can't do that sort of thing.
Hey, this is the year for older athletes. I mean, Tom Brady started it off right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep.
So I guess Phil is going to win this thing. Hey, thanks for the visit. As always, congrats again. Well-deserved. No surprise that they hired. You're a part of this broadcast team at Vanderbilt, and we'll talk to you. We'll check in from time to time.
All right.
Have fun, and we'll talk to you soon, Kevin. Thanks.
All right. Anytime, guys.
All right, that is Kevin Ingram out in Omaha with Vanderbilt for the College World Series. And, Willie, I don't remember you bringing up the Slump Busters tournament. I have jotted that down in some notes. I got to look into that.
You know, a lot of teams like to go to Cooperstown.
Yeah, you've brought that up before.
And I did not experience that firsthand, but everybody tells me that if they did it, that was a really cool thing that they did. But that's another one to put on your list.
How old was Mahoney when you guys did that?
They were 13, so they were on the big.
Okay.
They actually played in a 14-year-old tournament. But they were kids from all around the country. Chicago and Nebraska and Colorado and Texas. They were from everywhere. So it was really cool.
That is awesome.
But they have all age categories in there.
Okay.
I mean, you just see them. They're all over the park. There's a great atmosphere around the park, TD Ameritrade, where they got all these, what do you call them, simulated places you can go in the cage and try out all the different high-tech equipment. You can see how hard you're hitting the ball. The Rapsodo, you heard Kurt Casale talking about that. It measures how your launch angle, how hard you hit the ball, where it would have landed, all of these things. They got all that there. It just is baseball all day, all day, every day.
That's awesome.
Every TV when you go to the restaurant is on the game if there's a game on. It's awesome. The whole town is in on it.
I'm going to look into that. We'll come back and wrap up the first hour of the DDC next here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. want you to go to GameNashville.com. Check out and click on Nashville's best deals. This week's new deal is a $50 gift card for only $25 to Nashville's newest and largest axe-throwing venue. It's Bad Axe Throwing Nashville in downtown. That's at 648 Fog Street. 648 Fog Street. It's a great place to go hang out and throw some axes and some targets. Enjoy the downtown scenery.
Have you done it, Darren? Have you ever done it?
I have not.
Never?
Nope. I've never thrown an axe
You ought
at
to
a
do it
board
sometime.
or at anyone.
It's one that you should try one time, and then you can say you've done it, and then if you love it, you can go back. I would recommend this. There'll be a guy there that can tell you a couple of things to keep in mind when you do it. Number one, for safety purposes, but also just the technique so you can not look like a complete fool. Because I've seen some people that just cannot get the thing to stick. Mm-hmm. You have to get a little technique so it spins right and lands, so like the handle doesn't hit the target first. It's an experience, let me tell you. I did it with the Predators broadcast crew. You should see Lindsay Rowley firing that thing.
Yeah?
Yeah, she was pretty
She
good.
stick
Hal
it?
Gill almost put a hole in the wall at one point.
Why am I not surprised?
But safety is important at that thing. Let me just tell you. But it's fun. It was a blast.
So everybody ended up sticking it at some point?
Yes, there were some that had it took a while.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any clue. I've never attempted or thrown an axe, so it looks hard, but I don't know. Maybe I could stick it. Maybe I would look like Chase. Chase has done it, right? I think he said he's done it. No, maybe not, because we would have known.
Oh,
right?
he did.
There would have been. He did?
Yeah, I think last year.
Was he able to stick it?
I don't think so.
Well, that's
I don't
one
remember
where
that.
I think that needs to be on the reel of Chase, the Chase Olympics. Yesterday we revealed that he scored the goal from the goal line all the way length of the ice. That was a great achievement for him. We've shown him on the ice for the curling.
Yeah.
We have shown him on the
not a great
golf tee. We've shown him in the batting box. So I think axe throwing has got to be one of the next things. We've talked about. I don't think we had him on tape shooting the threes, but we've talked about it.
See, the thing with the axe throwing is, I don't know if
Somebody's gotta
anyone
be in the
knew.
room to video that, though. So
Yeah.
should they clear the room if he's throwing an axe?
It should be from way back.
There's got to be video somewhere because I know he did it, but the only reason I can't remember if it stuck is because I think we're all just happy that we all survived or that everyone that was in the vicinity
That's a fair
didn't get
point.
hit with an axe. So I think they took that victory more so than a possible sticking of the axe on a board.
Yeah, that's the part that kind of scares me is who's going to video it, because I would hope that they would clear the room. That's not anything to me. I would not stick.
You wear
around.
goggles. You stand back. You measure off the distance, and you stand accordingly. So it'd be a long distance shot.
Because if you think, just like in golf, that people cannot hit to the side or behind them off a tee box, you're wrong. I've seen it. And the same thing, if you think, if I'm just off to the side,
No, just off
I'm
the side.
okay, or
I wouldn't do
behind
that.
in an axe throwing,
No,
I'm
don't
not
do
sure
that.
you're safe with Chase doing it.
Yeah, the goggles might not protect me from losing a limb.
Yeah, no. So if you would like to do this, maybe I don't know if we've
It's
got
fun.
you.
I'm telling you, it's
if
fun.
we've piqued your interest, or you're like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. But if we did pique your interest, you can take advantage of that. Like I said, $50 gift card for $25. Just go to our website at thegamenashville.com. Remember, click on Nashville's best deals. Plus, they've got other great deals like Boom Ba's Craft Pizza, Tap House, buy one, get one free for Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon, Party Foul, Grain and Berry. So they've got some great deals on there right now. So check it out. A little bit later in the show, the NHL PA, the players poll, it's out. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it. I saw our guest yesterday, Greg Wyshynski, put it out there what the questions were going to be.
So we're gonna touch on the results.
Okay.
So don't look at it.
I will not. I will not look at it.
So we're going to take a little guess at that. Also, Mike Vrabel is going to talk to the media today at 12:30, so we'll hear what he has to say as they wrap up minicamp, and then they're shutting down until training camp begins in, I believe, 5 weeks. 5 weeks maybe from tomorrow, I think. So, I mean, it is just around the corner. And so we'll hear what the coach has to say. And speaking of the NHL PA player poll, we'll talk with Elliot Friedman. We'll get into some hockey stuff with him coming up today at 1 o'clock. But when we come back, we'll start the second hour. You heard him on Robbie and Rexroad this morning, filling in for Joe Rexroad. David Beauclair, we'll talk all things local with him to kick off the second hour of Darren, Daunic, and Chase on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Second hour, Darren, Daunic, and Chase here on this Thursday. Hope everybody's had a good day thus far. It's going to be hot again today. I think 90 degrees. Darren McFarland, Willie Daunic here with you. Elijah Campbell manning the board at our Wholesale Inc. Game Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com. You heard him this morning for 4 hours with Robbie Stanley. He was filling in for Joe Rexroad on Robbie and Rexroad. He'll do it again tomorrow. He's David Beauclair. He's with SI.com, and he now joins us. The man who's got, I don't know what you call it, a profile pic. Elijah's much younger, David. He calls it a banner pic on Twitter, but you've got you next to Ken Wisenhunt. There's got to be a story behind that. I've got to know what.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know what day that was specifically. I just I think that was I think the expression on my face was probably fairly common for most of us who were around for most or all of the Wisenhunt era.
Yeah,
put it that way.
The look, David, is, Coach, after you won the opening game, what happened in the next 15 games? Maybe kind of look?
Yeah, I guess. Or are you really just saying that right now? Whatever it was, I don't know. But you got to give Ken Wisenhunt that much. There is no better training camp coach than Ken Wisenhunt. His week one record with the Titans
fantastic,
was exemplary,
flawless.
You give that man 7 weeks to prepare for a game. He'll have his team ready. Give him 7 days, it turns into a bit of an issue.
Look, if there is a week one Hall of Fame, maybe not in Canton, maybe it's in Akron, they'll put a coat on him. He's in there.
Exactly.
How you doing? It's been a while since we've talked to you.
Oh yeah, I'm good. I need to squeeze in a nap here at some point today.
Yeah,
but,
I was going to say, your stamina. This is really going above and beyond. You're guest hosting, and then you have to do a gig at 11. Like, this is prime nap time here.
Yeah, well, no, actually, I'm going to have to get a little bit of work in. We've got a Mike Vrabel press conference here at 12:30, so it'll be later this afternoon. But I will be reclining at some point.
Yeah, we are going to air that live today at 12:30. So let's just start there. What are your impressions of Mike Vrabel to this point? How would you describe his work he's done thus far in this market as the Titans head coach?
I think all in all, you have to say he's done a good job. Just the fact that he's showing some staying power. You go 3 years with Mike Munchak, a year and a half with Ken Wisenhunt, 2.5 years with Mike Mularkey, and now you finally got a guy who's going. It looks like he's going to stick around for a while from a game management standpoint, a preparation standpoint. It's pretty tough to argue with his record at this point. I like the fact that he is sort of a big picture guy. Looks to me like a guy who probably is meant to be a head coach. I said late in the show this morning, the one thing he has to show is he relies very heavily, or has relied very heavily so far, on pre-existing relationships. When he put his coaching staff together, it was a lot of guys he worked with at Houston and/or Ohio State that he people that he already knew. He's had a preference for players from his Houston days that he worked with there. When you think of Jadeveon Clowney and Jonathan Joseph and Kevin Johnson and there's even been a whole bunch of lesser players that he knew. Like at some point, those relationships are going to run dry. And what I want to see from him is his ability to identify personnel, whether it's coaches, whether it's players, whatever, consistently, like people that he doesn't know, but he can say, okay, this guy is going to be good for us because. And I think that's going to be a big hurdle for him to overcome here in the next couple of years.
Well, hasn't he learned that from the best in Foxborough? I mean, he recycles them better than anybody. I mean, he's got to have a recycle bin the size of my cul-de-sac, of all the coaches that come. They go, and they come back, and they go, and they come back. That's all he's ever done. It's almost like big news if you hear of a guy that's never been on Belichick's staff, on his staff. I mean, Patricia goes, runs away, and then they come back. I mean, that's just what they do. Maybe he learned that from Bill.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, but he is clearly very he's clearly much more comfortable with guys he has known beforehand. And, like I say, eventually all the players who played for him or on that team when he was there in Houston are going to be out of the league. And, you're going to have to, I guess, maybe at that point he'll start bringing back former Titans players then.
Yeah, there you go. I put Willie and Chase on the spot with this question yesterday. So, David, sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
With these questions today. I'm going to start with what you like. Just whatever comes to mind. I'm going to do what you like and what you don't like as we sit here on June. Let's make it official, June 17th. So we're about 5 weeks out from training camp. Just give us one thing you like about the Titans sitting here on June 17th. How would you answer that?
I assume we're talking about something a little more obvious than the fact that Derrick Henry is, or a little more obscure than the fact that Derrick Henry's the running back, right?
Yeah. Just something besides the best running back in the NFL. Yes.
I'll say this based on what I've seen this week during minicamp. I like Jackrabbit Jenkins and his attitude. This is a guy. If you watched him in practice the last couple of days, he's 32 years old. He's 9 years in the league, got some pelts on the wall. He is out there competing like a rookie. I mean, and when I say competing, I mean laying out, knocking down passes, going shoulder to shoulder with receivers, making sure they don't catch the ball. He, Cameron Batson got him bad on a double move at one point on Tuesday, but the fact that he was going so hard that he bit on the first move, was eye-opening in its own way. That's been really surprising to me. And over the last 10 or 15 years, I've seen way too many defensive backs on this team who during practice will put their foot in the ground, break on the ball, take a stride or two, and then just let up like, okay, good, I got that in the game, I'm good. Or they're running stride for stride with the receiver down the field, ball goes up in the air, and eventually they just stop running, let the receiver catch the ball, say, yeah, I was with him, I'm good. That sort of competitiveness, Malcolm Butler was certainly a competitive cornerback and a guy who wanted to battle, but in terms of practice, it's been interesting. It's been surprising for me to watch, and with the concerns about overhauling virtually the entire secondary and what that's going to be like, I think I don't think there's any question that Jenkins is going to be a tone setter for that group and not just a guy who's showing up cashing another paycheck late in his career.
I love it. That's exactly what I was looking for. That's good stuff. Okay, how about the thing you don't like right now about the Titans as we sit here on June 17th?
I am I'm not crazy about the fact that they haven't really done much to address the tight end position after the loss of Jonnu Smith. And granted, Jonnu Smith is not an easy guy to replace, but they haven't really tried. They re-signed Jeff Swaim and they re-signed Anthony Ferkser, and both those guys are what they are. They're players who contributed to this team last year, but they're not creating any problems or any issues for opposing defenses. If Swaim's on the field, you can almost bet it's a running play. If Ferkser's on the field, you can almost bet it's a pass play. And tight end is such an evolving position in the NFL right now, and a place where teams are sort of setting themselves apart on offense, and the Titans seem to be really, really ordinary, I think, at that spot.
Okay, so we did this earlier in the week, so we're going to set the over-under on Anthony Ferkser catches this season at 39.5. Of course, we came up with that number because he had 39 last season. So do you think he will have a better season this year? And you say, well, Jonnu Smith is out of the picture. Yeah, but they've added Julio Jones. So that's going to take away a lot as well. So do you think he will do better, or would you take the under? Which way are you going on catches this year?
I would take the under because not necessarily because Julio Jones is directly going to take snaps or take throws from him. I think it's his snaps are going to go down. Ferkser, an overlooked aspect of last season's performance was when Adam Humphries got hurt. Ferkser was a guy who picked up a lot of snaps in the slot last year. They used him in that regard, and Ryan Tannehill trusted him there. with Jones now, Josh Reynolds is going to slide into the slot if Cam Batson's not the guy in there. All of a sudden, Ferkser is kind of third on the depth chart at that particular position. So I just think he's going to end up with fewer opportunities that way. And if I'm Ryan Tannehill, I'm looking to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones then, kind of obviously, I guess, in that assessment too. And that, that's where I'm trying to throw the ball. So I think he'll be under. And with assuming Darren Evans is healthy too, the screen game and some stuff you can do with the backs out of the backfield that they didn't really do are going to be available in the short passing game. So all that stuff is going to take opportunities away from Ferkser that he got last year.
Okay, you went exactly where I was going next. Can they get production out of the backfield other than number 22? Can they get somebody else to give him some relief or maybe catch a screen pass? Can they get anything from that position, which they haven't done a good job of the last couple of seasons?
The guy to watch in the backfield or in the preseason there is Brian Hill, who's come over from the Falcons. He's a guy who's been in the league for a few years and is sort of somewhere between Derrick Henry and Darren Evans. He's 6'1", 219, so he's got some bulk to him. Again, nobody's going to be Derrick Henry, but he's a guy who's rushed for a little more than 450 yards in a season. He caught 25 passes last year. So if you're gonna find a way to, if you feel the need to take some burden off Derrick Henry, Brian Hill is probably going to have to be the guy to do it. I don't think Jeremy McNichols is a regular. He's a good guy. He's a guy who will be available if somebody gets hurt. But it seems like it's his lot in life to be that guy who just has to stay in shape and stay ready. But Brian Hill, this will be his fifth year in the league. I think it falls on him to make the coaches feel a little bit more comfortable about having something else back there.
David Waclera is with us, talking a little Titans here. And David, we're all curious about what makes Todd Downing tick. He's going to be on the spot. He's been dealt this really great hand. It's a big challenge for him, high expectations. What are your first impressions of him? I know there's only been a couple of conversations since he took over.
Yeah, and it's tough to get a read on him. He's kind of a quiet guy. In fact, I was surprised he's much more vocal on the practice field than I would have suspected, and more than I remember when he was leading the tight end. So I think I said this morning, guys, that I think the big thing for Todd Downing, given the weapons he has, is don't overthink this and don't try to show how smart and creative you have. You have the best power back in football. The way he impacts the game is obvious. So hand him the ball, run the play actions, create opportunities for Julio Jones and A.J. Brown to get in space and emphasize those two guys and do that. Don't try necessarily to distinguish yourself from Arthur Smith in any way. That part of the reason he got this job is for continuity. He knows the playbook. He's been involved in creating the playbook the last couple of years, and just stick to it. Obviously, there's going to be some differences. His personality, his feel, his sort of rhythm for going through the game is going to be different. But I don't. I think the way he gets in trouble is if he really tries to make some big changes just to make changes.
I think that's a really interesting point. And David, this is what we've kicked around as an offshoot to that. Like you said, he's been with the tight ends, right? But the tight end position is different now, right? They don't know exactly where it's going to go. You said they haven't addressed it. Maybe there's another move to be made. But I think we're all wondering, with Julio Jones coming in, particularly with the actual formation. I think we were reading, I know one of the things that Joe put together on The Athletic was just the amount of time that they use the two tight ends. It's as much or more than anybody in the league. But will that change some? Will that force them to sort of get out of that, just take the keys from Arthur Smith and then plug it in and run the same stuff. It's almost going to force some evolution there.
Yeah, and I'd like to know, on a closer analysis too, how many of those times that the two tight ends were out there, like I mentioned earlier, that Ferkser was in the slot, because a lot of times, he was actually a third wide receiver more than a second tight end. It seems to me that they clearly favor the big wide receivers. Reynolds and Jones and Brown are all bigger than 6 foot, and Jones and Brown are well over 200 pounds. Josh Reynolds is just shy of that. That if that's the image you want to present when you're breaking the huddle, is this, those three guys plus Derrick Henry in the backfield, then there's nothing wrong with that. You can stick with that and sort of intimidate and punish defenses as much as possible. It's the formula, and like, until Derrick Henry proves that he can't carry the load, I think you just keep putting the load on him and let him go, and everything else is sort of secondary to that.
I think that's something that is worth watching, is that can they stay with that intimidating, that identity that they've built over the last few years, that when you play the Titans, it's going to be tough. They're going to come at you physically. They're going to beat you down. Henry is going to pound you. Because can they work Julio Jones into that seamlessly? He said all the right things, David, as you heard. I think it's been impressive how unselfish they've come across to start with, but just making all the pieces fit, I think it's a fair question to ask. How challenging is that going to be?
Yeah, I have been saying, and if you're a fantasy football owner, something to think about. I don't anticipate that Julio Jones will put up anything close to the catch numbers that he put up for years in Atlanta. Like, I don't see him catching 80 balls or 90 balls or whatever. I honestly think it'll be more like the 50 to 60 range when all is said and done. But I also think his yards per catch will be as good as, if not better than it's ever been. And on 60 catches, he could be over 1,000 yards, maybe even 1,200 yards. Like, it wouldn't stun me if he averages 20 yards per catch, given the way I think they're going to use him and the opportunities they'll have to use him in connection with Derrick Henry and Derrick Henry's reputation, so to speak.
Let me sneak one more in, David. What about the workload for Derrick Henry? Is that concerning to you at all? We spent a lot of time on our show last year. We've seen the numbers historically. When you carried as many times as he did, there could be a drop off, and sometimes it's a steep drop off. Now it's hard to envision that. You see how powerful he is in the prime of his career, but ideally, do you think they would like to shave off some of the carries there?
I think when you're sitting here in June and you're talking about these things, and I imagine, and I say that, imagining their coaches meetings, that yes, they say, it'd be a good idea to give Eddie, or to give Derrick Henry a little bit of a break somewhere along the line, particularly with a 17th game now this season. That's one more week, one more game that you've got to get him through. But when you get into the season and you get into those games and you see the effect he starts having on defenses, and that when they start wearing down, he has the potential to break that big one that it's really tough to get away from. But to your point, Willie, you and I have both been around long enough. We remember when Eddie George had 403 carries back in 2000. Oh yeah, and then never averaged 3.5 yards of carry for the rest of his career after that. It absolutely is a concern, but Henry has stood up to, it was a concern. It was a concern last year after the numbers he put up in 2019, particularly during the playoff run, and he came back just fine from that. We've all seen all the workout videos. If anybody is built to sort of do this for more than just a year or two, it seems like Derrick Henry's that guy. So again, until he proves he can't deliver the way he has, I think you just keep with it and let him go.
Speaking of Eddie, as we wrap this up, how do you think he's going to do at TSU?
he'll certainly do great from an inspirational standpoint. He's certainly smart enough to know how to hire a coaching staff and let his coaches do their job. It's not an easy job, but the excitement and enthusiasm he'll inject immediately will be worth something. And I think I've never seen Eddie George come close to failing at anything. And what success looks like at TSU in 2021, I don't know that I have a clear picture of that, but I think Eddie George will succeed to kind of whatever degree he wants to or thinks is reasonable there.
Yeah. I guess it depends on what they're looking for or what they're calling success over there. I guess is how you answer that. Thanks for the visit. Really appreciate it. And we'll be listening tomorrow morning. Thanks for doing this.
Okay, boys. Thanks for having me.
All right, that is David Beauclair, SI.com. He'll be filling in for Joe Rexroad again tomorrow morning with Robbie Stanley on Robbie and Rexroad. We'll come back and discuss more of that on the other side. Some interesting points made there. By the way, it was pretty timely on the Eddie George discussion. He did name his staff yesterday. It became official, even though a lot of names have been leaked out there for a while. But we'll come back. More on the other side as you listen to Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. 94.9 is the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. Listen in tomorrow night. Nashville SC takes on the New York Red Bulls. Willie probably knows something about the New York Red Bulls. The match begins at 7 p.m.
I actually don't know a whole lot about them. I know they've been around for a while, but
I was going to say,
I know something more about the New York Cosmos from the 70s and 80s.
Soccer in New York back in the day.
Oh, memories. Giant Stadium, 1979 or 80.
They have any
The New York
players on
Cosmos.
that team that anybody would recognize?
Yeah, that was the great names. Some great names from the past. Canalia, Beckenbauer, Pelé.
I was going to say that wasn't the first two were not the one I was looking for.
Yeah, I never saw Pelé live at Giant Stadium. I did go to the Pelé soccer camp. I was fortunate enough, my dad was the athletic director at Manhattanville College, which is, probably like 45 minutes outside the city, a lot of fields, and Pelé ran his soccer camp out of there, and they had hundreds of kids every summer for 2 or 3 years in the aftermath of his career. Man, you want to talk about presence. He'd come out there and talk to the camp. Holy cow. It was just an amazing thing to see. I was so young. That was my only experience with soccer. I don't think I ever played on a soccer team, but I went to the summer camps just to be a part of it.
I played it and coached it, or not coached it, reffed it, and that those checks weren't big enough for me to keep doing that. No, being a ref was not for that money. No thanks. And at that age, I was in high school. I was like, no, I'm out of this game.
But it's been good to see Nashville SC after this little break, see what they've got. They're in a decent spot.
Still haven't lost a match yet.
This should be their time to shine, right? They didn't get to do it last year, right? They were on the sideline. Remember, they were supposed to play in that tournament. They couldn't play in the tournament. They finally did come back. But now, as far as just starting to get the flow back, get their fans back, there's no hockey going on. There's no football going on. This is kind of what we envisioned, right? And it's really going to take shape when the stadium is finished. But I think their games over the summers to come are going to be big events.
Yep. I would agree with that, for sure. A little shout-out to Brandon Galloway, who we've had on our show several times. He is the Titans Fan of the Year last year, and he was also the NFL Fan of the Year. And he got a little shout-out on NFL Network this morning because they're starting that back up for the 2021 campaign. He was 2020's NFL Fan of the Year. Brandon, who lives in Clarksville, like I said, he's been on our show. It was a huge honor to be the NFL Fan of the Year. He got to go to the Super Bowl. He had quite the experience there. Got to meet some really cool people who he told us about. Plus, he got to announce a draft pick in Cleveland. Like, how cool was that? So I saw this morning when I was flipping around. I just happened to stumble on it at the right time. They gave him a little shout-out, talked about him for a minute, and said, hey, they're searching for the 2021 NFL Fan of the Year. So it's a pretty cool contest. So if you're a Titans fan out there listening, if you didn't hear what Brandon got to go through, you just heard it right there. If you want to try to experience something like that as a fan, you should probably enter the contest. It's pretty cool. Eddie George officially announced his staff yesterday, and some names that, were nothing new. We've seen, Hugh Jackson's been the worst kept secret ever. He's the OC, which is, the OC at TSU is Hugh Jackson. Just think about that. That's pretty incredible. Some guy named Brandon Fisher is the DC. I don't know if you've heard of him, Willie. If you know anything about a guy named Brandon Fisher. He played football here locally.
He did?
His dad, I think, coached here locally.
I
think he goes by Jeff.
Pat Sperduto and I called a game.
Yes, you did.
Brandon Fisher's
Yes, you did.
Championship game. And the quarterback for the opposite team was a guy named Will Healy. It was a great game. Chattanooga. Oh, man. Why am I forgetting the name of the team? Chattanooga blank blank. Help me out, Elijah.
Was this the Roadrunners?
Not Notre Dame. What are the other private schools in Chattanooga?
Baylor School?
Not Baylor. No, it's a smaller classification. It was CPA with Brandon Fisher was playing against Chattanooga. But it was a great game. Went to overtime. Will Healy was the quarterback. I remember the first time when he got the job at Austin Peay, I brought up that game. He's like, "Why are you reminding me about that game?" It was a painful loss for him.
When Boyd Buchanan, was it?
Boyd Buchanan. That's exactly what. Chattanooga Boyd Buchanan against CPA. Great high school game. I saw Jeff Fisher in the elevator on the way down. He was so jacked up about that game. He couldn't believe it. He wanted to talk about it the entire ride down with Pat and I. But, boy, that brings back memories. So Brandon Fisher is going to run the defense for Eddie George. How about that?
Pretty cool. So Brandon Fisher is the defensive coordinator. Hugh Jackson is the offensive coordinator. I think a couple of other names that stood out just from in this market and you would recognize from their playing days. Joe Bowden is the linebackers coach.
Joe Bowden.
Joe Bowden.
That was my go-to guy, Darren, and you were in the same position I was over the years. The early years, the locker room, you go down and you get interviews post-game for Titans games, right?
Yes.
And you would string, you did some stringing for national services. I did it for our post-game show at going to be completely swarmed by everybody, right? Eddie George, Steve McNair, forget those guys. You'll never get them one-on-one. You just have to get them in the big scrum. But who do I go to for a good one-on-one? Joe is always a guy. Great linebacker for kind of an underrated player, I think, for Jeff Fisher's defense back in the day.
I didn't
Titans.
think he was that underrated. I thought he was legit.
But you just don't hear his name brought up very much these days,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
now maybe it will.
Yeah. Trying to think. Let's see. Was there any other thing that I think Clyde Simmons is going to be the defensive line coach? I think we can all remember Clyde Simmons, and so those are some of the notable names.
Here is the issue, not issue. This is the question, Darren, that I'll throw at you. I think the biggest challenge for these guys is certainly not going to be their football acumen. They're all going to be great at that, but how quickly will they adapt to teaching college kids as opposed to pro players? I think that's an art form that not as easily done. And I don't know a whole lot about what they're inheriting with TSU's roster. Let me relay it back to my first job on the sidelines for the Vanderbilt network, right? First year of Rod Dowhauer. On the media guide that year, you take a look, Rod Dowhauer brought in a staff with just as much or more acumen in terms of skins on the wall, Super Bowl rings, guys who had coached great NFL teams. But as we know, and they were brought in for one thing. They were brought in to put in a pro-style offense, but they inherited a team that had been running the option, and it was a disaster offensively. These were great coaches, right? This was Woody Woodenhofer, and this was, I can't remember, Rennie Simmons. They had some veteran NFL coaches that had been like on the Hogs for the Redskins, and they had Super Bowl rings. They had a picture of all the coaches with all the Super Bowl rings. Like Woody had 4 himself. They had the Redskins guys. But translating it to that level is a different animal. So I just wonder how is it going now that he's been on the job, Eddie, for what's it now been 6 weeks, 8 weeks? How is he adapting to the lifestyle of a coach, right? What it takes every day. Eddie George has been like we've been saying, he can do anything, right? He's done everything. He's acted. He's an ambassador for the baseball group that's trying to bring a major league team here. He's a great ambassador for the Titans. But we know a football coach. We have all these legendary stories of guys sleeping in their offices and stuff like that. Is Eddie going to do that? Does he need to do that? Or is he more of a CEO? These are all questions I have, right? And we also have an idea that he's not inheriting some football machine that has all the resources laid out where he's just going to walk in there and everything's great. As Rod Reed pointed out in sort of his swan song press conference, he kind of had a message of, all right, let's see, good luck to you. Rod Reed loves TSU. Mm-hmm. He's stepping aside. He wants the program to succeed, but he's kind of like, okay, let's just see if you can deal with all the challenges that all of us have dealt with over the years of making it happen at this school in this league. I think it's a great challenge.
It's a great question, and it's a fair question. And here are my early thoughts on a great question and a fair question. One, at least he's brought in some of these. Now, Hugh Jackson really doesn't qualify. He's more of a pro coach. But Brandon Fisher's been coaching in college.
Yeah,
so,
he's not. Yeah,
he
he's
was
not
at
in
Auburn,
that.
and so he's coming from the college game. So that helps, right? He was at Auburn, and then I think he was the DC at Southern Utah. So he's been at the college level. Joe Bowden, believe it or not, has also been coaching in college. Coming over from the college game. Who else did I bring up?
Clyde Simmons.
Clyde Simmons came from the college game. So and some of them do have the NFL experience too as coaching, but they are coming, to your point, they're coming though from college. And some of his other staff members are literally coming from, now they're small universities, what have you, different levels, not Division I, but they are coming from the college game. So maybe that helps. The other part of this is, I think you hit on it. I just get the feeling like Eddie George is going to be more of a CEO. Because, one, we all know if this thing has any chance, and I mean any chance of real success, because, as you mentioned, Rod Reed, he understands it better than anybody. And he's going to have to go out there and raise money. It's like Tim Corbin. If Tim Corbin wanted to make this at work at Vanderbilt to where it is today, if Tim Corbin didn't roll up his sleeves and go out there and say, fine, if you're not going to help me, I'll go do it myself. If Eddie George doesn't do that, this is going to fail, period. But if Eddie George is willing to go out there and roll up his sleeves, and quite honestly, I haven't seen it yet. I mean, we haven't even had him on the show since he's been named the coach, and I get it. Maybe it's a little overwhelming and all this stuff, but, dude, this is part of your job. It's your job to sell the program. It's your job to get out there and shake hands and kiss babies, get on radio shows and TV shows and talk about your product like Deion Sanders has been doing, because I suspect he's probably the CEO too. Because you think Deion Sanders is sleeping in the office? I don't think so. So I think that's the role he is playing. But so far, I mean, I haven't been impressed. I mean, like I said, we haven't even had him on the show yet. So I know he's trying to get all this stuff put together, and this is all new to him, so I'll give him a pass. But, look, he'll get a pass for a good while, but then there's going to come a point where it's like, okay, now we need to see results.
Right.
And he's going to have to go out there and raise money. He's going to have to go out there and do it himself, because TSU is not going to write him blank checks.
There's so many things. Raising money is one of them, for sure.
Well, I'm saying he needs the facilities. He needs upgrades.
Yeah.
He needs things to get the players in there to let this staff, this upgraded staff, because it is a really good staff, but they're going to need players for this to succeed.
Players, right. So there's fundraising for resources to get the players. There's recruiting budgets. There's how do you play the game, especially we know for years transfers have been a big part of OVC football, right? Guys who maybe have not had it work out for one reason or another at major college, they come over and play great in the OVC. Where's your resource there? All of these things. The other thing that we know he's got going for him that I think is going to be a huge resource is, especially with Brandon, the defensive coordinator. But right now, Jeff Fisher has got to be out there, and he's a great resource of, let me show you how this is what it takes. Here you go. You're diving in. You've never been an assistant before. You're diving in. You're the head coach. Have you thought about this? Here's what you got to do over here. He's got to be a great resource for that. But this is diving in head first into the deep end, right? And there's got to be some eye-opening things that are going on right now. And you've probably got in the OVC a lot of coaches going, okay, this is going to be exciting. We're going to have the spotlight on this, but we're going to show him a few things about how it works here. That's not going to
happen.
They're going to love playing against TSU.
Yes.
Right? There's going to be a little extra.
They're going to circle that date for sure.
No doubt.
That's the other part.
They're going to show you how it's done a little bit here. It's not going to be with any kind of bitterness towards Eddie personally or anything, but there's kind of a challenge. As a competitor, you're like, okay, Tennessee State's hired Eddie George. let's see if he can coach. We know we got a good program over here. We're going to show him a thing or two.
Yep. Look, they've already won the press conference, and so that's a part of this. And they did. They won the press conference. They got a lot of talk. They got a lot of talk that TSU football hasn't had in a good while. No disrespect to Rod Reed, but, I mean, you hire Eddie George, and you're going to get a lot of discussion. It is going to be a discussion piece, and we've already went through all that, and so that's good. So they already won the press conference. So that's done. That book is closed. So now it's like, okay, you've done that. Now what do you got? And so that's where they are. They're in the next chapter. And by the way, when he gets more of this out there, actually I shouldn't say the book is closed because it's not closed. It was the initial press conference. But like I said, Eddie's going to have to get out there and sell the program. He's got to get out there and sell it, by going literally face-to-face and talking to people. He's going to have to get on radio shows like this and TV shows. He's going to have to sell the program. And right now I've seen none of that. I mean, zero. But I understand. He's got a lot he's trying to figure out. But once he starts, everything gets going, they get a little bit more adapted to things, he's going to need to do that for this to work. And like I said, the other part is he's going to have to figure out who can give them money. We had a guest on here recently that was really cool. Master P, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Our boy Brian Collins, our buddy Penny. He's figuring that out. This is kind of the new wave, and Brian's out there trying to raise money, trying to do things to help his basketball program. I think Master P, you think he's going to be, with his son Hersey playing on the team, you think there's going to be some money, a check stroke TSU's way, saying basketball? I suspect so. We had a great conversation with him. And he's going to have to do some of that stuff. And I know he's probably leaning on a lot of people. And you brought up Jeff Fisher. That's more of things on the field, although Jeff was great about things off the field. He really was. I mean, honestly,
yes.
Jeff may have been the best I've ever seen at literally working the game, playing the game off the field as a head coach.
Well, I think some of the things you've already laid out are really important things. That support system around you, your ability to sell the program, and ultimately it's how do you get players to come play for you, right? Once you get them there, if you have good coaches, then you should start to have success. But all of those other things, it's not just showing up and having the practices for sure. There's so many layers to this. So it's a crash course. We knew it was going to be like that. We're just pointing out the challenges. I'm not skeptical at all. I just think there's a lot that even if you think you're prepared for it, when it's hitting, and how about this, Darren? Every school in the OVC and whatever other leagues did this is dealing with something that's never been dealt with before by anybody, even veteran coaches, and that is playing a spring season and then turning around and playing a fall season.
Right.
And so TSU, they're inheriting a new team that just played in the spring. So they're just finished the season. So how are you adapting the players to, how are they recovering and preparing at the same time for the next season, which is going to start here very soon? None of those guys have ever done that before.
We're going to play Mike Vrabel, his comments as they wrap up. They're not actually practicing today, but he's obviously going to put a bow on these mini camps, and then they're going to go away for 5 weeks. So we're going to play that live at 12:30. How about we give away some Eric Clapton tickets at noon? We want to do that? Want to let DJ Elijah spin the tunes backwards at noon?
DJ Elijah's already
prepared.
Always
prepared.
ready.
Okay. Well, we'll do that at high noon. When we come back, we will put a bow on the second hour of Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. I told you tomorrow, Nashville SC will be up in New York taking on the Red Bulls. So your next chance to participate in the Nashville SC Pick to Click, which is brought to you by Camarena Tequila, is where you get to pick a Nashville SC player to score a goal. And if they score a goal, you win a prize pack and a 4-pack of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. So keep that in mind tomorrow morning at 9:45. That is your next chance for your Pick to Click, where you get to pick a player to score a goal. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, we're going to give you an opportunity to win Eric Clapton tickets coming up at high noon. And at 12:30 at the bottom of the hour, in the third hour, we will hear from Titans head coach Mike Vrabel, Elliot Friedman at 1 o'clock. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the Titans. So we had David Beauclair on to kick off this hour. We got into some really good discussions, and I want to hit on something he said about Julio Jones. Now, I know he said, but his point was he thinks he could have, he could have a good average for his catches. In other words, gain a lot of yards in his catches. But it really got my attention when David said he believes he's only going to have 50 or 60 catches this year, because the first thing I thought of is this trade worth it if you bring in Julio Jones to only catch the ball 50 or 60 times this season? And it wasn't because he wasn't saying this because he's saying, hey, he's just going to play 11 games. So just keep that in mind, right? He's going to, or 12 games, whatever you want to call it. He's going to be hurt. He's going to miss some games. He was just saying, no, he's still got the ability to get you 1,000, 1,100, maybe even 1,200 yards, but only on 50 or 60 catches. One, that would be quite the feat if you could put up 1,200 yards on 50 catches or even 60 catches. But what did you make of that statement? Because the first thing I thought of is, if that's all they're getting out of Julio Jones, was it really worth the trade?
I think it's 100% worth it as long as everybody's okay with their role. Somebody in here is not going to have great individual stats, I think. It's either going to be Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, or A.J. Brown. One of the three, if not two of the three, might have numbers that are not quite as good as what their career averages are. But that could be fine as long as the ball's being spread around and the offense has been effective. I don't know if it's that extreme that David's talking about, but it can't help but come down some. You heard Tim Hasselbeck. He's been concerned about that from day one. And really, it's been alleviated some just because of how well Julio Jones has handled those questions. I think he's prepared for his numbers to come down. He says, I'm a team guy. I'm not a catch first. How many catches? I'm a team guy. He averages 9.8 targets per game for his career. That's going to come down. There's just no way that they're going to change the offense and keep that number up at this stage of his career and based on the offense they've been running. But I think 50 is a little bit low. I think it's probably somewhere in between. But yeah, it's absolutely worth it because of what it's going to do to open up everybody else. If nobody cares who gets the yards and who gets the fanfare, as long as the offense continues to hum along, then it's all good, and you win.
I'm going to set the over-under catches for Julio Jones this season at 79.5. What do you have, over or under?
Under.
I'm taking the over.
So then what's your over-under for Derrick Henry?
On carries or touches? What do we?
Let's go carries.
Okay, what did he have last year? 370?
He had over 370. I think it was 378. Is that right? 376?
I think that's right. So 378. So let's go how about 349.5?
Oof. Okay, let's just take those two numbers. To me, there's no way that number could be over and Julio Jones' number is going to be over. One has got to go under. There's just not going to be enough plays unless A.J. Brown doesn't ever get the ball thrown to him.
Well, Corey Davis had how many catches last year?
between 50 and 60,
Right.
I think.
Okay.
He was incredibly efficient with that.
I think he had, 50 or 65. Corey Davis had 65 last year.
Right, and he missed 2 games.
Yeah. Well, he had 65 catches.
And
A.J. Brown had
here's
over
the other
1,000
thing that
yards.
I'm not factoring in when you say 79 that there is a 17th game. I need to be thinking about that.
Yep.
Because that affects things a lot. I mean, that's an extra 60 minutes of action where you're going to get more targets. So 79 is not unrealistic, but I still might go a little under.
Well, it's 79.5. So is he going to hit the 80 catch plateau or 79?
That's with 17 games, a little less than 5 catches a week. That's pretty reasonable.
Yeah. So
I think that's probably a pretty good number. I haven't checked what it is in Vegas or whatever, but I think that's reasonable. But what did you say? Corey Davis had 64?
65 catches last year.
65, and that was his max that he had. But I'm just saying, if that happens with Jones, if Jones ends up over, then the number for Henry will be under the 349. And that might be perfect just because that reduces his workload some. I think ideally, you keep that number for him, between 320 and 330 or 340. Right? If you get up into that 370 again, and remember there's 17 games now. Last year, at the pace he was at, he would have had close to 400 carries. And we saw what happened with Eddie George after he hit 400.
Well, I would tell you.
There's a lot to think about here.
What if Derrick Henry is special? What if he's elite? This body of work, Derrick Henry is going to have his body of work, I think, is going to surpass Eddie George.
Was Sean Alexander?
Yeah, Sean Alexander was, I think so.
Well, I mean, you could go down the list. There's a lot of guys who had the drop-off after the 370 that you would have to have said at the time were elite.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of the factors. I'm a
believer
don't think these guys
in Derrick Henry.
Yeah, but I think the game has changed, and so they don't take the pounding as bad. We've talked about all this. Like I am a firm believer that you don't get the pounding that those guys that you're talking about. That era, Eddie George, Sean Alexander, there just were other things going on. You could do things that you cannot do today. And so I don't believe their body takes because really, when you think about it, Derrick Henry is a specimen. I mean, you've seen the same workout videos I have again this offseason, right? It's insane. I mean, but Eddie George was too. He was a freak. I mean, when you saw him, he looked like something you made in a lab. Well, Derrick Henry's no different. But I just think these guys, they take less of a beating. Not that the game is soft or any of that stuff. It's still a very, very physical game, and it's at times that's what everybody loves about it. It's still a physical sport, and we know guys are going to get hurt, but I just think they take less of a pounding than what they did 20 years ago. Because you cannot do things that you were able to do back then.
I disagree. They're bigger, stronger, faster than they've ever been. I don't know that that's the case. I do know they throw the ball more, but 370 is 370, and you're right. You're counting on Derrick Henry being that special that he can just keep doing it for at least another year, hopefully another 2 or 3 years. But just getting back to it, I try not to get caught up in exact catches and yards. I'm looking about the team offensive efficiency. That's the most important thing. And somebody's numbers individually are going to change. Maybe it's A.J. Brown. I don't know. But A.J. Brown seems to be a guy you want to make sure he gets his touches too. And that's the thing. If you spread it around right and it works perfectly, then it shouldn't matter on a particular week how many catches each guy gets. It's just one week it might be Derrick Henry, 30 carries. Other weeks it might be Julio Jones catching 10 balls or 12. Other weeks it might be A.J. Brown. But when you do that, somebody else doesn't get the ball. And that's fine if as long as the team and the offense is effective.
We'll see how this plays out. Like I said, we will have unless you guys disagree with my numbers, 79.5 catches for Julio Jones. Derrick Henry carries 349.5. And like I said, unless you guys come up with totally different numbers, that's what we'll go with on the show.
What's A.J. Brown? You need to put one for him,
too. Need to do one for A.J. Brown. Look, the phones are starting to light up, and it's not to weigh in on this discussion. It's to try to win tickets. So let's come back, let DJ Elijah work his magic. We'll spin some Eric Clapton tunes backwards to kick off the third hour of Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Third hour, Darren, Daunic, and Chase here on this Thursday afternoon. Hope everybody's having A good day to this point. Darren McFarland, Willie Daunic here with you. Chase is off today. He's out at the Nashville Superspeedway in Gladeville. He'll return to the show tomorrow. Obviously, it's a big race weekend. Trucks tomorrow night, Xfinity race on Saturday, Cup race, the Ally 400 on Sunday. First Cup race in our market since 1984. But it is time. And I had a great video sent to me
1984
on Tuesday when I was making my way out to Fordyce Center in Bellevue on 615 day. And I think I don't even know if I showed you, Willie. I told you about it, but I'm not even sure I showed you. And I felt like that video because it was cool. It was one of the teams that we go up against in travel ball. They're actually from this area. They were playing up in a tournament in Kentucky, and one of the dads had sent this to me and said, thought you would appreciate this. And before they got started in the game, the home plate umpire came out and said, so-and-so, are you ready? And they're like, ah. And then he comes over, points to the other team, are you ready? And they're like, ah. And then he goes, fans, are you ready? They're like, ah. And he's like, let's play ball. I mean, if you want to be
it wasn't Paul McCann, was it?
No, it was not. But look, if you want to get people on the ump side, my guess is probably nobody complained, or they complained a lot less after something like that. Because if that doesn't get you right, is that not unbelievable? I've never seen anything like that. I thought it was awesome to see an umpire come out, and before the game begins, that's how they started the game. Like, that was cool. That's kind of what I feel like.
All
Willie,
right.
are you ready? DJ, Elijah, are you ready?
Yeah.
Listeners, are you ready? Let's win some Clapton tickets. By the way, he's coming September 21st to Bridgestone Arena.
Did Eric Clapton? I'm sure he had some songs in 1984. We'll have to see if
He's had
Elijah
about-
goes with that theme.
he's had about 5
being the first
decades
Cup
of
race
songs.
since 1984. You also watched Wonder Woman 1984. I don't think there was any clips from the race in Nashville that year in the movie.
And I never
It
want to
might
watch
have helped
it
the
again.
movie.
By the way, I was flipping through last night. I stumbled. I was like, nope. Kept on going.
Oh, it's on
Nope.
every night now. Just
Yeah.
if you
Nope.
and it's not I have to say, I would not recommend it.
No, it's bad. Bad, bad, bad. All right, jump in there. 615-737-1025. Let's load them up like we've done all week. Your chance to win Eric Clapton tickets. Now, what DJ Elijah is going to do is he's going to spin a Clapton tune backwards, and it's up to you to guess it correctly. And if you do so, you're going to that show at Bridgestone Arena in September. Let's start things off. Steve was first in. Steve was calling last hour, ready to go. So, Steve, you are first up. Have you listened at all this week? Do you know what we're doing?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And some of the songs are hard to identify.
Okay. So your level of confidence is a little bit shaky?
I was
Schmedium,
able
I
to
would say.
identify several of them, so hopefully I can win tickets today, but we'll see.
Okay. All right. We got faith. Hey, we did have a winner on the first caller, first song. So here we go. DJ Elijah, spin that tune.
Oh, me.
Wow. That was a little bit longer, too, than normal.
I think I know this one, but I'm not sure. Let's roll it one more time. It sounds like a guy that's really having some physical health problems in the moment. He's calling out for help.
Steve, do you have a guess?
I'm going to guess Running on Faith. I thought I heard it's probably not right.
Running on Faith is the guess, Elijah?
Oh, man.
Steve, thanks for trying, man.
All right, thanks.
All right, 615-737. Oh, wow. We had loaded lines, and Steve fell off, and 2 other people fell off. Elijah, they got scared.
I even gave you a couple extra seconds because when I was
did.
making the clip, I was like, this one's pretty tough. So I gave you 2 extra seconds. I usually keep myself to 5, but after listening to this, I figured I'd give you a couple extra seconds in there.
Okay. All right. 615-737-1025. That is our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're going to have to call in and participate on the air. Let's go to Dylan. You're up next. Dylan, what's your level of confidence? You feel good or a little bit shaky after that last one?
I knew yesterday's. I think I may have an idea of today's, but I'm not 100% sure. Could you play it again, please?
All right. DJ
Are we
Elijah.
going with the same one?
Yeah, we're going with it. Let's spin it.
It sounds like he's about to, go nuts, go off the deep end. Like it gets worse, like the health problems or something. Like he's on a roller coaster and he feels like his heart's going to stop or something.
Do we have a guess, Dylan?
Yeah, it is more of a guess. I'm going to go with White Room.
That is my guess. That's officially my guess.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that that's it, but I think he's right.
Oh, my.
He's got it.
Oh, my.
All right.
Dylan.
That's it?
That's it.
That's it.
Look.
Oh,
Was that
nice.
Gus? Did you bring out Gus for the winning
Had
answer?
to.
That was good.
Had to
Yeah.
get out Gus for it.
Yeah, when you hear Gus Johnson, you know that's a winner. Dylan, good job. I was thinking that, but I honestly was not sure. I honestly was not sure.
It's kind of the way it's in the White Room and black curtains at the station. It was kind of like the ascending and descending sort of thing that I think got it for me.
That's
That
exactly
was-
the clip I used, too. So now
had
you know
to
what that
go
sounds like
from
backwards.
Ascending to you had to make the switch. Ascending to
Yeah.
descending.
Exactly.
I mean, that's like Cream. That's a long, long time. Like, what year was that? Elijah, do you know?
60s,
That's got to
I
be,
think.
I think that was 68, maybe 68 or 69.
yeah. That's
Yeah,
I was gonna
somewhere
say
around that era.
that had to be 60s, or maybe early 70s. But we'll go 68. Dylan, good job, man. You're going to the show.
Awesome, guys.
It's
That is the
September.
best. Thank you so much.
Enjoy it. We're going to put you on hold. DJ Elijah will get all your info. And I got to be honest, the listeners have done a really good job. This is not easy, and they've done a really good job. I think we've gone maybe 3 deep once.
It
Maybe
just makes
4
me laugh
deep.
when you start playing a song backwards. I don't know. It just makes me laugh. We
I
should
do-
start playing famous announcer calls backwards and see what those sound like.
By the way, and I'm just going in order, okay? These lines are loaded. If you don't believe me, I feel bad, and he's still on there. I feel bad. I'm bringing him up. Elijah, punch up Barrett. There we go.
There we go.
Barrett, I feel bad because this is 2 days in a row you were next up. Like I said, I'm just going in order. You're next
I knew
up.
every one except the one I had on Monday. I knew Sheriff, I knew Crossroads, I knew White Room right away.
So here we go. So this is he just set it up. Barrett calls in Monday, gets a crack at it, and misses. And the last 2 days, you have been you're next up, and the person before you has won 2 days in a row.
Well, I was hoping you'd say hi. I ain't talked to y'all in a while. I was at that race in 1984. It was the summer between high school and college, and I was moving into Lipscomb, right down the road from the Speedway, pretty close. And back when you could drive around Nashville, and it was great. Man, I had my Bill Elliott T-shirt on, and we were huge Bill Elliott heads, and it was just awesome. Just thinking about it, those cars and Cale Yarborough, and Dale was a young man. He was still in the
Yeah.
Wrangler car, I believe.
Yeah.
And it was the Allisons were there, the Allison seniors, and Jarrett, and Dale Jarrett was a kid. Dale Jr. was probably 2 or 3.
It
But yeah,
still
it was
is a
awesome.
mystery.
I don't believe Chase was even born yet, was he, Chase Elliott? I don't think
I
his son
don't
was
think
even
so.
born.
I think Chase McCabe might have been very much a toddler as well.
1984? Yeah. No,
That was
that's
before.
before him. That's before
That was
him.
BC, before Chase.
BC.
Before Chase. But it was place was packed. We used to go to the All-American 400 every year too when they stopped with the Cup Series, and Harry Gantz of the world would come, and Ned Jarrett would come, and so I'm really excited that the racing is coming back, and I hope Chase is having a blast out there. I know he's really into it.
So you're not going?
Oh, I can't go. I've got a Father's Day weekend and got big plans.
Okay, well, good. Well, happy Father's Day. Maybe
Thank
you'll get to one
gentlemen.
soon.
I'm going to hope, man. You guys be good. It's always great to listen to you.
All right. Thank you, Barrett.
Will Barrett get another crack as a Clapton ticket?
I don't know if that made him feel any better, but that is the truth, though. Like,
Better or
loaded
worse.
lines,
Yeah.
he's 2 days in a row, he's been next up, and the person got it. So,
Are we doing this again tomorrow?
yeah, of course.
Oh, yes.
Yes. All week.
So
Clapton
don't
all
give
week.
up hope if you've been trying. Hang in there.
All right, we will come back. Mike Vrabel at the bottom of the hour. We'll come back and continue the discussion. Good job with that. Yes, we will do it one more day tomorrow. A last chance to win Clapton tickets to Bridgestone Arena in September. As you listen to the DDC, ESPN 102.5 The Game. We just brought up Father's Day. You know what? Us at ESPN 102.5 The Game, we're going to salute those frontline fathers. Submit written descriptions of fathers who are serving on the front lines, including military, hospital workers, firefighters, or police. This week we will air those submissions via call-ins, text messages, or website and social media. Visit thegamenashville.com now for more information. Don't forget Father's Day on Sunday. So, yeah, the cup race will be going on Father's Day. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, Darren McFarland, Willie Daunic here with you. I talked earlier in the show, by the way, Mike Vrabel coming up in about 10 minutes, about the NHL Players Association. So the Players Poll that came out, okay? This is where nearly 500 NHL players were surveyed in 14 hockey-related questions, and they weighed in and gave their answers, and they, of course, added up all those answers and came away who was, in some cases, the top 4, top 5, who was the winner, blah, blah, blah. All right, here we go. On ice, who is the best goal scorer? Who do you think the player said is the best goal scorer?
Best goal scorer, I'll say Ovechkin, out of respect for the elder.
Ovechkin was second with 34% of the vote.
Austin Matthews.
Austin Matthews, with 46% of the vote, was number one. So it was basically Matthews, Ovechkin, and everybody else.
Okay. So I was all around that.
Yep.
Next category.
Who is the best defenseman?
Best defenseman in the game.
Best defenseman
as voted on by the players.
Voted on by the players. Let me just tell you this as your hint. This player received 65% of the vote.
Victor Hedman.
Victor Hedman, 65% of the vote. There was a tie for second for 7.35% of the vote.
So it's a big – there's so many good defensemen.
It was a cliff dive to second from Victor Hedman.
Is 59 in there somewhere? I hope.
59 is one of them. The captain, Roman Josi, 7.35%, along with
Pietrangelo?
Nope. Not even on the list.
Pietrangelo not on the list, huh?
Not on the list. Not in the – let's see, they've got the top 5. Well, top 4 if you count these two grouped together.
Wow.
He is normally in the Predators division.
Normally in the Predators division. So they're going to go with Cale Makar?
Cale Makar.
Wow. Interesting. He's got that many votes at that young of an age. He is pretty
I
dynamic.
I thought the same thing. Like, wow, okay. Remember, this is the players voting.
He's a budding superstar. There's no question. There's a lot of disappointment in Colorado that they did not win the whole thing because they've got some contract decisions. They've got too many good players, so that's a dilemma for them.
Here's the crazy thing, Willie. You know, when we were in Denver for that first round of the playoffs, now 3 years ago, right? 3 seasons ago,
2018.
We were talking about like this team is the team on the rise. This is the team that's about to break through, and you know what? They've just been full of disappointment. Like, they have not been able to do anything. They haven't made any noise whatsoever.
Well, and they've been really good in the regular season.
I understand, but that's not what we were talking about. We were talking about this is the team that's about to take that next step as in a deep playoff run, and here we sit, and they haven't.
They've lost in the second round.
The last 2 years.
The last 2 years. So they've won rounds, but they haven't.
Well, they've won a round.
And that's not nothing. We know how hard it is to win a round. I'm trying to think, what was the other in 2019? What was their situation? I'm trying to remember. Did they win a round that year? They would have played.
You're talking about the year after the Predators put them out in the first round?
Yeah. Did they lose first round that year?
I think they lost first round, and then they've.
They would have lost to the Blues. Is that right? Were they a wild card? I can't. I'm not recalling.
it has been filled with disappointment, especially
a
like
lot of
you said,
disappointment
this
only
year
because they've been so
especially.
good. I mean, it's such a powerful team. It's a great one. All right, let's move on to the next.
Who was the
topic.
President's Trophy winner?
Vegas.
I thought Colorado was.
Oh, was it? Was it
It was
Colorado?
Colorado. It was Colorado.
You're right.
Colorado won. That's my point.
Barely.
And they didn't make it out of the second round. So, all right, who is the best goalie?
Vasilevsky. Gotta win that player.
54%. You go Vasilevsky?
Gotta be.
Yep. Honestly, when you see Victor Hedman at 65%, Vasilevsky only 54%. But yes, he was the winner. But I was surprised it wasn't more.
Who got the second amount of votes on the goalie?
9% of the votes went to
Still Carey Price. Is he still
Carey
getting
Price
like a lifetime achievement?
third.
Still gets. See, he's got so much respect, even though his numbers haven't been as good. Fleury.
Fleury second.
Okay.
Care to guess who's fourth?
Fourth.
This is pretty interesting. Just you wonder where they go next.
Just whatever pops into a player's mind. Nothing's coming to my.
I know that's what's
mind right now. It's obvious
because it seems like there's a lot of options like for that next spot.
Yeah,
it's Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah, I can see that. Hellebuck's been really good.
Here's an interesting category: who's the most complete player? And it was a tie for first.
Most complete player. Tied for first. Braden Point.
Nope.
No.
Not even on the list.
Gonna be more of an all-around guy.
By the way, Ryan Porth, while you're thinking about it, just texted us and said on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, that's our personal text line, that Colorado's lost in the second round 3 straight years.
3 straight years. Okay, so they won a round in 2019.
They lost in Game 7 to San Jose, 2019.
That's right. The Colin Wilson overturned offside. Big goal there. Best all-around player. Connor McDavid's got to have it.
Because
right?
we need to go to the break because we've got Mike Vrabel coming through. Okay, Connor McDavid was on the list. He was not. It was Sidney Crosby and Patrice Bergeron.
Okay.
Tied for first.
It's hard to not go with McDavid there.
Alexander Barkov was next.
Oh, I got it. He's awesome.
Then Connor McDavid. Then Nathan McKinnon.
Barkov over McDavid for best all-around player.
Yes, that's why I said that. Yeah, he doubled him. Doubled him in votes. All right, we will come back. We will hear from Titans head coach Mike Vrabel on the other side as they have wrapped up mini camps. We'll do that next on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, let's head over to the Titans facility, and let's hear from their head coach. Here's Mike Vrabel.
We, met with the players, and then, they worked their way out of here. So we didn't do any bowling or any golfing or any skeet shooting. We just went out, ran, and tried to show them where we were conditioning wise, and where we feel like we need to be when we come back for training camp. And then to compare, there's really nothing to compare to from last year. Teresa, obviously, there wasn't a program. So we have to be well ahead of where we were last year with some of the younger players that are coming into our program for the first time and not getting that at training camp.
Jim Wyatt.
Mike, how much additional time do you have now with the rookies? How much longer they stay in town, and how beneficial can that be for those guys?
Well, they have a few weeks. They'll be finishing up their rookie program that's run by Chick Giassi. That allows them to transition and to try to deal with some of the things that they're going to have to deal with coming from college, now working in the NFL, and also allow them to work with our strength and conditioning staff and get whatever treatment they may need here. So I think, it's as beneficial as they, as much as they put into it, that's what they'll get out.
Harry.
Mike, can you hear me? Greetings from 1995.
Hi, buddy. I'm glad you were listening to me on the radio.
Well, I heard it on Twitter. I was going to ask you how you stop Emmitt Smith, but I'll ask a real question. With the kicker situation, how much have you liked what you've seen out of Tucker McCann and the rookie Hallbile? And are you confident going into training camp that the battle could end up being between those two?
Well, that's where the battle's at now, Terry. And there's not really much of a battle. There's no rush. We have to put them into situations and evaluate them, a lot more in training camp and in preseason. But they're both working hard, and we're excited to see where that competition leads. And then we'll have to make a decision at that point in time if that's what's best for the team and one of those guys moving forward. But everything that we've seen thus far, those guys are continuing to improve and work with the timing and the operation with Morgan and Brett.
Darren.
Yeah, what's up, Coach? Now that you got to string some days of practice together, watching Jackrabbit Jenkins, what are your thoughts on how he could help be a leader and create that street rat mentality, as you say, for that secondary?
Well, it's evident that Rabbit loves football. It's fun to be around him. He's an instinctive player, and looking forward to working with him a lot more. And I guess it's just an example of guys that are professionals that maybe haven't spent a whole lot of time here, that come back and hop right in and be able to pick things up quickly and transition into a new role and a new team from what he's been with.
Kayla.
Hey, Coach. I know not every rookie has been out there, some dealing with injuries, but have you liked the progression over the last couple of weeks of these younger guys?
Kayla, I would make sure that I wouldn't always assume that just because they're not out there that they're dealing with injuries, but that could always change based on certain situations. So a lot of them, some of them haven't been out there, and there have been improvement, and it's been really cool to see this group kind of come together. They were in front of the team, as kind of a warm up rookie skit today. Some of them got up there that really hadn't said a whole lot and sang some pretty good songs. No good joke tellers yet, but that was good for these guys just to get up there and kind of see what training camp's going to look like. When those vets ask them to get up and perform, and just the whole program that we run with the rookies is exciting to watch them develop and become more comfortable each and every day. And that's all we're hoping for, is that they they continue to improve and get more comfortable with how we do things, and they're starting to develop a role in this football team.
Ben Arthur.
Hey, Mike, what were your, impressions of the tight end group throughout the offseason program? And then just how comfortable are you with that group, personnel wise, as you guys head into the break?
It's a group that, has some versatility, and that group, again, felt like I answered this, tried to explain it the other day. It's not going to really be determined until we get some pads on and we're able to work with these guys in the run game, and then continue to expand their role in the passing game and what their responsibilities are. So that position is has allowed them to run routes and be active, but we also know that they're going to have to contribute in the run game, and that's going to be identified when pads come on and we're doing those things in training camp. And then, after that, if John and I, like any other position, feel like we need to try to bring guys in to help improve our football team, we'll try to do that. We'll try to take advantage of that opportunity.
Glennon.
Hey, Mike, wondered in terms of players getting vaccinated. I know you mentioned maybe at some point, you try to give them as much information as possible. Did you end up bringing anybody in, medical expert or anything along those lines? And also, what was your message to players in regards to vaccination as they left? Do you urge them to get vaccinated, or do you pretty much leave it completely up to them and not offer, opinions one way or the other?
Well, I think that this is certainly something that's become a large, focal point. I think what's important is that the education is there, the communication is there, and we have had multiple conversations with them and had people talk to them.
Just to kind of.
So I know, Buck, everybody knows you have a radio show. We don't need to hear it on the press conference.
Joe Rexrode.
All right, wait. Sorry, I was just going to rip on Buck, and then I mess up my mute button. But we still need to reject Buck.
Joe, let me handle ripping on Buck.
Yeah, no, you're probably better than I am at that. So, Mike, following up on the vaccinations, I guess, can you give us any indication of how things are going for you guys? And do you buy that it could be a competitive advantage this year, for teams that, have reached the threshold and are able to all be gathered together at all times?
Well, we can be gathered. We can be gathered. It's just at what distance some of those players that aren't vaccinated, are gathering with us. The close quarantine, the close contact, excuse me, Joe, there's going to be some other things that go involved. I don't think that there's going to be an issue with whatever threshold that we get to about being able to coach, and being able to function. But some of the other things, as far as the close contact or the tracing, we have to be responsible for, and, making sure that we're tracking, who's wearing their mask and, all those things now that the NFL can fine you for. That's where I think the competitive, advantage or disadvantage may come in. I don't think it's going to be about preparing. It's just going to be some of those close contacts where guys may have to be out for 5 days if they're a close contact of someone that if they're not vaccinated.
Jared Stillman.
Yeah, Mike, yesterday Todd said that he didn't want to see a Todd Downing offense. He wanted to see a Tennessee Titans offense. What is the identity with this group that you have now that you want the offense to go into camp and build towards?
I think that's, your identity is ultimately, what you put out there. And we could have ideas, and I think that we have ideas about what we want to be. I think efficient. I know that discipline is something that we always want to be. I think we want to be creative. I think we want to be physical. I hope that our style of, our effort and our finish is something that's going to going to stick out. And those are things that we believe in. We believe in those types of things. I want them to be prepared. But all obviously very efficient in how we handle things and the operation in which we, the speed in which we move at.
Gentry.
Yeah, Mike, kind of following up on Todd, how much would you expect it'll help him? He's stepping into a play calling role, having been an OC before. And did you see, Arthur grow into that from year 1 to year 2?
I mean, I think all our past experiences, Gentry, I think help us, if we can take those and use them to our advantage and improve the things that we feel like maybe we didn't do a good enough job at, or trying to enhance the things we did well at. No different in any of your careers as you've moved from place to place or added responsibility to your job. I think that's all everybody's trying to do. Just like different players are coming and maybe bringing some really positive things from where they've been in the past and some things that we may, incorporate. And then also obviously continuing to learn and develop and being flexible by your personnel and who you have and who's available to you.
Steve Lehman.
Hey, Mike, considering the coordinator change and some of the other personnel changes, how important has this time on the field this spring been to the foundation of what you want? And is it fair to say that you know more about your team, even with all those changes at this point this year than you did last year, considering it was all Zoom?
Yeah, I mean, last year we really can't compare much to last year, and would rather not, begin to make comparisons between year to year. But nothing beats being able to get with a group of players and coach them and try to get and see improvement and show them improvement, things that are going to help them and their progress and development, and just being out there as a football team. This is the game and the life that we've chosen. It's played with a group of people that have to come together and try to figure each other out and figure out how each other operates and all work within a system and trying to do and function as a football team and bring three faces together. And, that'll take more time in training camp, but it's always good to be able to work and coach players.
Chris Harris.
Hey, Mike, I just had a question again about the vaccinations. You mentioned about the competitive advantage or disadvantage if they do or don't get one. Can you explain why you think some guys would choose ultimately to not get vaccinated if it does, in fact, put the team at a competitive disadvantage?
No, Chris, I'm not going to comment on why someone may or may not make a personal decision. I know that that's going to get spun because it could ultimately affect the football team, but we're going to respect their decision to do what's best and to continue to get the education that they need to make an informed decision. So I'm not going to be able to comment on why someone would or wouldn't get it.
A couple more for Coach Teresa.
Mike, right now you guys have been working out of the bubble. What's the state of the renovations in the old building? How's training camp going to look at this point? Do you have any kind of timeline? I know construction is always malleable, but do you have a timeline for how you'll be able to be working come the start of training camp?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you were on with Taylor Lewan yesterday, Teresa, but he mentioned something about his return. Do you remember what he said?
I was on, but I can't remember. I've slept since then.
Well, he said that he wasn't going to put a timeline on it. And so that's something that we're going to steer clear of. Teresa has put a timeline, certainly on return to play and certainly construction. For any of us that have built anything, I don't want to put a timeline on it.
How challenging has it been working around this and this off season and possibly doing part of camp while trying to get something better, just having to be patient through all this?
We're excited to get back in there whenever it happens. We'll work, and the computers work out here, and we'll be just fine wherever we have to be.
Jim Wyatt.
Mike, what's the competition like behind Julio, AJ, and Josh at the receiver spot, and how much of those guys, better be on point, knowing there's not a lot of roster spots to be had?
I would say it's pretty wide open, Jim. I'd say it's pretty wide open. I like the looks of that group.
How about the rookie? How about Dez and Racy in particular? How they kind of advanced through the offseason?
I think that those two guys, I think that when we talked about the comfort level and their comfort level around the football team, and that group has been really good to see. That them grow and develop and try to improve each and every day. Two young players with really good size, and working hard with Rob and Eric about improving route running and all those types of things that it's going to be so critical. And then we'll see where they are when pads come on and how they catch it in traffic and how they can block.
Two more, John Glennon.
Mike, I know going into this offseason, I know third down on defense was obviously a big priority. And I know Shane mentioned it too, that there'd been a lot of work done in that regard. Specifically, what did you see in terms of the work done here in the offseason anyway? And did you see reason for optimism that things are, going to get better in that regard?
Yeah, John, we're very confident that we'll be improved on third down. It's just, I think it's well done is better than well said. We're going to have to continue to put the work in and practice and do some things at a really good speed to go out there and build confidence so when we go to the season, that there's an understanding of what we're trying to do on each and every call and being able to go out there and execute it. And whether that's affect the quarterback or disrupt timing and a lot of different ways, but you're right. It has to be better. The third down, has to be better for us to be successful.
Last question, Jared Stillman.
Mike, I do wonder how much with the players gone now, the coaching staff will get to focus on the opponents that are upcoming, maybe to get a little pre-study in before you guys have to start making game plans. And if you could, maybe the Colts have added a new quarterback and you guys have been very competitive with them over the last couple of years. What kind of challenges do you see, in the division and building up this year?
I think we're always conscious of who we play, but you could go overboard and start looking at teams down the road, and it could be drastically different. We're going to get film of everybody. Maybe your early opponents that we haven't played in the past, or they have new coordinators, and you're trying to piecemeal together what they might do. Right now is a lot of time focusing on what we're doing, and yes, we're conscious of what other teams are doing, but we have to improve the Titans and make sure that we're as good as we can possibly be, and then continue to take a look at what we're doing against everybody else. And yeah, you mentioned the Colts, and obviously very familiar with Jacksonville and Houston, and how competitive it's been, in our division the last couple of years.
There you go, Titans head coach Mike Vrabel, kind of wrapping up mini camps, and then they will break for about 5 weeks, and it's going to be training camp. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase. Darren McFarland and Willie Daunic here with you. There are very, very few. We've played a lot of Mike Vrabel press conferences, and I mean a lot, over the years since he's been the head coach. And I can honestly tell you there are very, very, very few times I have ever laughed out loud. I laughed out loud today a couple of times. I actually thought he was funny. Teresa Walker asked him about the facility. I mean, who's going to be done? For somebody who's built a house and has dealt with construction. In fact, we built our house whenever the economic meltdown happened in 2008, basically 07, 08 range. We had to go through a lot of crap. Builder went under, had to get a new builder as they had already started on the house. And I just laughed out loud because if anybody has ever dealt with, a timeline of building something, it just never goes as planned.
Exactly.
It was actually
never going to be exactly what you said.
It was like
so
a great answer.
Predict?
He's like, I have no clue. He's like, if you've ever done anything with building, you don't ever put a timeline on it because more times than not, it's not going to happen.
You're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I laughed out loud. So that's there's been very few laugh out loud moments with Mike Vrabel, but that one made me laugh out loud.
Oh, yeah. And, of course, there's always the bumbling, somebody goofs up on the Zoom. Terry McCormick, the wisecrack of the 1995, because that's a past one, right? He's been notorious for having poor signal on his questions, and he's broken up. And he's by no means the only one. Jim Wyatt took several turns last year. So everybody's got their reputation of their delivery of questions, and so Mike Vrabel has had some fun with that. So it has become entertainment, I do think. Just what's the tone of Vrabel today?
Right.
Who's going to goof up the question? Who's going to get a wisecrack coming back his way? It has been good there. What did you think of the vaccination line of questioning? Because I here's my perspective on that, Darren. And you and I are both vaccinated. I can only speak for myself. I absolutely am loving being able to go around and not worry about going to this place or that place with a mask on. And the freedom is huge. Worth it 10 times out of 10. I personally, I've listened to people talk about their concerns as to why they're not going to get vaccinated. Okay, to each their own, right? But if you're a football player and this is your job, you'd really have to have some really strong information. After what they went through last year and all of the tiptoeing around and carefulness that you had to do and getting tested every day, I mean, you have to have some compelling stuff to convince me, if I'm a football player, that I'm gonna opt not to get vaccinated. And at the same time, I completely understand Mike Vrabel's way of handling the questions. I thought he handled them very, very well. He said exactly what he needed to say. But if you kind of read between the lines, it's like, boy, it's a heck of a lot more convenient if we get to that threshold and you don't have to worry about all that stuff. I mean, it just is a grind. It just leaned on everybody, right? Not just a football team, but everywhere in life, but especially a sports team, playing and interacting the way a sports team does in locker rooms, in meeting rooms, right? How can you not root to have that stuff lifted by what the vaccination can do for you? That's just how I see it. I'm just giving you my opinion.
Yeah, no, I lost on that bet. I had the under on vaccination questions to Mike Vrabel today. I took the under. It was clearly
it was more than I expected. I didn't expect 3 or 4 questions.
Clearly
like that.
The over. So that ticket's in the trash. I lost that ticket. Yeah, I was surprised at how many vaccination questions there were. I understand there is a competitive advantage or disadvantage depending on what you're talking about when asked. The players who have opted not to, what do you think of that? I mean, I fully expected him to do exactly what he said and say, I'm not touching that. I'm not going to speak for them on their reasons, and you can respect that. I'm
not going to judge a person for their individual decision on that.
I fully expected that answer.
But think about if you're a player, you're trying to make the team, and you get a positive test, and now you're on the sideline for 2 weeks, like has been the protocol before. Like, why would you put yourself in that position?
Well, I talked to someone on the Predator staff Tuesday out of Fordyce Center in Bellevue, and they were just commenting on just the whole process of, basically getting a swab up your nose every day and what that's like. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, you had it. I didn't have to do that. Thank goodness, because the only time I ever did it is one time. And unfortunately, it's when I got it. So, because I kind of knew, like, oh, I feel weird. And this was, the week of the Super Bowl, and so just doing it one time, and I did it by, and I self-administrated it. I can't imagine doing that every single day for months, and like I could not imagine
every day.
I know. I honestly, I feel I would do what. I guess I'm trying to answer your question by going, I would do whatever to not have to do that again, right? And I did it once, and I was like, it's not like I cried or anything. It was like, man, it's just not,
not pleasant.
It's uncomfortable. It's just not
and it's
comfortable.
It's a burden. It's just the experience itself is one thing, but just the burden of doing it. Now, my perspective is our group that was working at the arena, we got tested 2 days before every game. So you do the math, that's 50 times or whatever we got tested. But that's 2 days before every game. The players and the staff that's there every day got tested every day.
Every
single day. And I'm not talking about day of game or just work days. Every day. Even on a Sunday where you didn't have to come to the rink. You had to get tested. Same thing with the NFL was no different, right? They had the same thing. So you'd have to have some overwhelming evidence that I don't see personally to want to sign up for that. Again, it just would relieve so many stresses. And the whole competitive advantage thing, I don't really know exactly where that completely falls in, but you heard Mike Vrabel kind of say, I just think it's a why would you want to spend the time and energy that it took? Because having gone through it for a year, if you've been in there, how much time and energy it took from your day every day to deal with that.
Well,
and there's a way not to deal with it.
But they have
right
to
now.
gather at a safe distance. It may be in other rooms. So there is a little bit of a disadvantage because you are not doing everything with everyone, right? I mean, he's saying, hey, we can all gather, but they have to kind of be off at a safe distance in another place. I don't know how that works, but it's just not like since we've done it. It's you're right. I mean, I gosh, it's so. I mean, I got used to it. It's like whatever. I mean, you do what you have to do, but do I miss what we did for 15 months or whatever it's been? Yeah, I do not.
I do not miss
not at all. I went on that trip, and everybody on that trip had been vaccinated, and we had a good old time, and it felt very, very normal, and it was it was refreshing and nice. So anyway, other than that, real quick, anything else jump out at you? Like I said, I lost my over/under vaccination questions in that press conference, but anything else stand out?
I think the only thing to me was the third down, right? I think that's something that I know we get caught up in pass rush a lot, and the two are related. But I like his conviction of saying we're confident we're going to be better on third down.
Right,
you almost can't be worse.
But he's done that a lot. Like he was confident the pass rush was going to get better.
It was a stinging reminder, though, how big.
Sure.
That is a huge emphasis this year. They've got to be better there.
No doubt.
Is there anything else that jumped out at you? I'm trying to think of any. I don't think there was anything else controversial. He loves Jenkins, the president. And we heard this from Tehran the other day.
Well,
how much, and we heard this from David Beauclair earlier today,
when I asked him
that it's been noticeable that Jenkins brings something to a team beyond what we're going to see on it. He's got that intangible, that competitiveness that's going to rub off on people. That's an interesting ingredient there we're learning about.
When I asked David that today, what is something you like today about this Titans team? He went right there, talked about how Jenkins has stood out.
The Jackrabbit.
Yeah. So. Yeah, good stuff. All right, we will come back. We will begin the final hour of the program with our man Elliot Friedman from Sportsnet. We'll do that next here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Final hour, Darren, Daunic, and Chase here on ESPN 102.5 The Game on this hot Thursday here in Middle Tennessee. Darren McFarland, Willie Daunic here with you. We say hello to our good buddy Elliot Friedman from Sportsnet, who joins us this time every Thursday. Elliot, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Well, it's 90 degrees in Nashville. What about Toronto?
Actually, I got to tell you, it's a nice day out today. I don't know if it's quite 90, but it's really nice. I'm actually doing this. I just did a Peloton, and I'm sitting on my back deck while we do this interview. So we can't always do that in Toronto like you guys in Nashville. So it's nice.
So you're in the cool down period. Okay, good.
I'm in the yes. Yes, you are a true cyclist. I did my true cool down, and now I'm really cooling down.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, Montreal cooled down Vegas a little bit last night, and boy, I thought Shea Weber was outstanding. That's the Shea we watched for a long time here in Nashville. I just thought, he proved his worth. Not that he didn't prove his worth. We all know how great he is, but I just thought he really Carey Price stood out, but I thought Shea Weber, number 6, stood out as well.
Well, the amazing thing about it with Weber is he's basically doing it looks like, with 8 fingers, right? Both his thumbs appear to be hurt.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw, but a couple weeks ago, like at the end of the regular season when Weber was out, the Canadians accidentally released a photo of Weber getting vaccinated, and it showed that he was wearing a harness or something on his left thumb. And we knew he was out of the lineup at the time, and they'd shown some video of him skating with one hand and shooting left-handed, and, we know he isn't left-handed. So we thought there was something wrong with the left hand, and accidentally they showed us that there was. And then in Game 1, he took a slash off a face-off from Ryan Reeves, and we saw him shaking his hand. Like, he went to the bench and he was shaking it. And I didn't realize at the time until someone pointed out to me the next day it was the other hand, and it was right on the thumb. And if you saw last night, he was at the end of the game on the last shift when he was blocking some shots and generally causing havoc, he was shaking that right hand again. So he's got two badly hurt thumbs. And the joke I make is, you guys know Weber. He'll just cut off the thumbs, put them in ice, and reattach them in August, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly. Elliot,
what he's doing right now is amazing.
It's amazing. I can the story that comes to mind for me, the 2015 first round, Predators against the eventual Stanley Cup champion Blackhawks. Predators actually are a higher seed. Blackhawks, people may not remember that, but he gets his kneecap dislocated.
Yep.
I think in the first
injury.
game, if it not the first, it was definitely the second. And he was fully prepared. He was telling people, you got to figure a way. I got to get back in. The doctor's like, you cannot come back in this game. He was like, I got to try.
Yeah, your kneecap came out of its socket, Shea. You cannot play. Moving forward.
Unfortunately, he missed the rest of the series, which was a big factor. They lost Mike Fisher in that series too, but that's the kind of pain threshold he has.
We were talking
earlier. I think he's just determined. Like, he's one of those guys he's like, it's just a mindset, right? And I think some of those people are borderline insane, but he just refuses to admit to defeat to anything. And I remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, I couldn't remember, but he was playing with an injury, and one of the other Canadians told me, you would not believe what this guy is going through to play right now. And you guys would know. I mean, you guys were just talking about it. Your fans would know, the Predators fans. They've seen this all. But I think to a lot of other people, I don't think we really understand the pain threshold or the sheer will. It's like he refuses to admit defeat to anything. It's really quite amazing.
We were talking earlier, Elliot, now it shifts back to Montreal. We know at the very end they were the first one to get in Canada, first ones to get people in the building. I think it's at 2,500. Have they announced what they're going to allow for Game 3?
3,500 for the next 2 games.
3,500. Okay, so that's
yeah.
Well, that's it's something, but man, it's too bad because you guys, the atmosphere, what that would be like in a sold-out barn.
Oh, yeah.
It would have been very different. So you have to give advantage Vegas because of that, right? Or no?
Well, I think the one thing is that Montreal's gotten used to it, so I don't think it'll bother them anymore. One of the big storylines we were wondering coming into the series was how would Montreal react to its first full house of the year? And I thought they handled it pretty well. I thought they came out in game one. They were the better team in the first game. And then, they ran into penalty trouble and Vegas overwhelmed them. Last night, again, I thought they were the better team to start. They actually had the building really quiet as we've heard it for the playoffs. And then Pietrangelo made it 3-1, and there was a big skirmish at the end of the second period. And Vegas really feeds on that. And as we saw, Montreal kind of held on for dear life in the third period. But now the thing's going to be like, I think we're going to be talking about this tomorrow for Game 3. How's Vegas going to handle its first real nothing crowd of the playoffs?
Yeah,
it's going to be it's going to be interesting. About the whole non-crowd thing, it's funny. My buddies who are Toronto fans, they're like, I'm glad we didn't win it this year. And I'm saying to them, be quiet. You don't really believe that. And they're like, no, because we would have won the Stanley Cup and we wouldn't have been able to have a parade. And I'm saying to them, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You don't really believe that.
Speaking of someone else that we got to know well in their time in Nashville, the Lightning and Islanders, that series shifts and gets underway Game 3 tonight. We got to know Barry Trotz very, very well here, and he was usually pretty cool, calm, and collected on the bench. In fact, we used to take calls, Elliot. Why doesn't Barry ever get mad? Why doesn't that coach ever get animated on the bench? And he was animated in Game 2. There was some horrible calls in that game, and boy, did he let them have it. Bruce Cassidy, I'm sure, would say, tough, deal with it. You deserve some horrible calls. But nonetheless, Barry, very animated in Game 2.
Well, I was a bit surprised because, yes, the referees did have a bad night in Game 2 of that series, but one of those calls really benefited the Islanders. It's not like, you're right, they missed it too many men. There were 7 guys on the ice when Tampa scored one of those goals. But don't forget, too, that Tampa had a 1-0 lead. And, for those of you who didn't see the play, Varlamov, the Islander goalie, had to leave the game because Point crashed into him.
Yeah.
And Point got a penalty, and Adam Pelech, the Islanders defenseman, he was completely at fault for that. That was a terrible call.
Yeah.
And it comes right after the Lightning had made it 1-0 in a series they're down. And the Islanders get a power play, and they score. And so, I understand that Trotz was mad about that particular call. I get it. And the referees didn't have a great night. But he did get the benefit of a horrible call his way at a pretty critical time. And, guys, the one thing I do wonder about is those referees, they go into their dressing rooms in the intermissions, and they watch exactly what's being said. They know everything that's being said about there. And sometimes I wonder, when Trotz complains after a night like that where he got the benefit of a really rough call, does it hurt you in the long run? I guess we're going to find out in a few hours.
Elliot, is Kucherov just going to sit out next regular season and just play in the playoffs, you think, moving forward?
Jeff and I were joking on the podcast that every year they're going to pick one member of the Lightning who has to sit
I
out
heard
the
you guys
regular
talking
season
about this.
so they can vest. Yeah, but we said that there's no way Vasilevsky, the goalie, is going to be the one allowed to do it. I think – the amazing thing is that they tried to trade Johnson, and they just couldn't do it. And I think they were very close, days away from trading Killorn. And they did not want to do that. And to be honest, guys, I think it's possible he was coming to Nashville. I think he was a guy that you guys had on you. And you guys took a long time to make moves last year. And I think one of the reasons was I think you guys were one of the teams that he might have ended up with. And they did not want to do that. And it saved Killorn there for the season. And you see how important a player he is for them. I think at some point in time they're going to have a reckoning here. And I know everybody is complaining about this. I don't have a problem with it. Chicago did it to win the Stanley Cup in the year you guys just mentioned, 2015. If they really wanted to clear up that loophole, they could have done it 6 years ago. They didn't. And the other thing, too, and I know this might not be the most popular take I've ever come up with, I think it's not a bad thing if some of the fans just hate some of the teams in this league. I know that everybody hates Toronto. Like, hate's good. Everybody hates the Yankees. You either love them or you really hate them, and they're a draw because of it. The Red Sox have become that team. The Dallas Cowboys have been that team for a long time. Like, excuse me, if fans are really riled up about Lightning and that, I think that's good. Like, I saw that exchange the Predators had on social media with the Golden Knights. Like, when the Golden Knights said, is there a banner for this? And you guys, your social media team, which I thought was really funny, put one up that says, "This is why no one likes you."
Right.
Like, that's true. Like, there's teams that hate the Golden Knights because they don't think an expansion team should be this successful this quickly. Guys, I think that hate is great. We need people that are villains. You cannot have heroes without villains, and I think this is good for interest in the sport.
Interesting. We've tried to, and we're just literally trying to read into every little thing on what does that mean for Pacarine moving forward. Have you heard anything on that front? Do you have any gut feeling, or have you talked to anybody that you think Pekka's leaning one way or the other? Like, we believe on this show that it's either going to be here as the backup next season or he's going back to Finland and playing there to finish out his career. Like, we don't believe he's going to play for another team. So are you hearing anything on that front at all?
Well, the one thing I did hear was when Rask came out and said that if he comes back, he's playing in Boston, and if he comes back, he needs surgery and he won't be able to play until probably January or February. What I heard was the Bruins told him, "Tuukka, you've earned the right to take your time, and we don't want you to make an emotional decision. The only thing we need to know is we need to know well before, free agency so we can start making our plans." And I think I kind of heard that was similar to what you guys and Renee were talking about, was that you've earned the right to make your decision. And, I think you guys will keep it tight as an organization, because I think the Predators / Renee want to make the announcement their way. So information, I think, is very tight. But the only thing that someone told me was that it was similar with Renee, like, you've earned the right to think about it. Just make sure we have plenty of time to know one way or the other.
Elliot Friedman is with us. We're talking hockey with him. Elliot, you've been hinting the last couple of weeks that this was going to get done. Rod Brind'Amour now makes it official. He's staying with the Hurricanes. One thing you mentioned was he was trying to leverage his power, basically, to get better deals for his assistants. Did he succeed in that?
I believe that it was not only assistants, it was the goalie coach and the training staff and the equipment staff, too. All of their contracts were up. And I believe that happened in every case so far except one, and that's the assistant coach who has permission to talk to other teams, Dean Chenoweth, who runs their defense and their penalty kill. So as far as I know, it's everybody minus him.
One of the things that I heard you guys discussing on your podcast was the aftermath of Colorado, right? Nathan McKinnon and his emotional thing. We haven't won anything. I thought we were going to win it. So Nashville, it's unique. You lose these juggernauts that are leaving, Carolina and Tampa Bay, competing for the President's Trophy. They're gone, and now you get Colorado coming back in. They're going to be an angry, hungry team next year. But you were talking about they've got some tough decisions to make with their cap. Tell people about that, because we're going to get very familiar with them again next year.
Well, I think what's going to happen there is, like, they have a lot of free agents. They have Landeskog, their captain, is an unrestricted free agent. Grubauer, the starting goaltender, is an unrestricted free agent. They've got a bunch of depth forwards who are UFAs, and some guys who are restricted, and that includes Cale Makar, who was a Norris Trophy finalist this year and was the only defenseman to average a point a game. And what I think is they want Landeskog to stay very badly. And he's their captain. He's been a loyal franchise player since he got there. He's a huge part of their team, and they want him to stay. But the tricky thing is Makar. Now, from what I understand, they're willing to talk long-term. Like, a lot of the top young players aren't signing for term right now because they want to wait to see the cap, how much the cap does or does not go up. And they figure if they take 3-year deals now, eventually there'll be more room. Makar, I've heard, is willing to talk long-term deal, and I think the Avalanche would like to do a long-term deal, but I've heard if that's the case, the number is going to be very, very big. And he's earned it. He deserves it. And so, they've also got McKinnon in 2 years, and that number they know is going to be very, very big. So your priorities are those 3 guys, Makar, McKinnon, and Landeskog, but you probably can't give them all what they want. I think they really want to keep Landeskog badly. I think they think he sets a phenomenal tone for their organization, and they want him to stay. But it's going to be tricky with the Makar, depending on how many years Makar signs for. So I think that's how it's going to work. It's going to be, what's Makar's number? How do we keep Landeskog? We've got to deal with McKinnon in 2 years, and everything else has to work around that.
Last thing for you, I started to read some of these guys that are starting to take a crack at a mock draft for Seattle. And I saw one where there were 3 different people taking stabs at it. And on the one that I read in The Athletic this morning, all 3 guys had a different predator that they took. But it's sort of illustrated when you look at the big picture, not just the team that you're covering. Like, of course, here in Nashville, everybody's wondering who are the Predators going to lose. But you have to sort of look at it in the context of Seattle. And I saw a lot of tough decisions between a guy, you mentioned Alex Killorn. Tampa is going to have to somewhere in here shed some payroll. So do you take a guy like that, or do you take more of a young up-and-coming guy who maybe you control a little longer, who's a little cheaper? There's so many tricky ones. Team by team, Seattle's got to make these choices. It sort of hit me in the face just what a big thing this is, just looking at it macro instead of micro.
Seattle, like every team in the league would say to you guys, we made the ones that we saw some of the mistakes that were made with Vegas, Minnesota, Florida, and they said we're not going to let that happen to us again. If we lose a player, we lose a player, and we're not walking ourselves into even bigger losses. And then came the pandemic and the flat cap, and now teams are looking at this like, we got some problems here. And so Seattle is basically extorting them again. And, that's the name of the game. That's right. That's what they have to do. And, so I think you're going to see, I think teams are basically asking, what's the minimal amount of damage we can do to ourselves and how to get that? And I think that's kind of where we are here. I think there's a big one looming. I think the Eichel one could happen before then. We'll see how that turns out. But I think there's a lot of teams sitting there saying, oh, my God, I can't believe what Seattle's asking. How do we work around this? It's going to be a big challenge because one of the things I've heard is Seattle only has to draft 60% of the cap. And I think they want to keep their flexibility. And I think they're targeting defensemen. If you look at Ron Francis's history, he built by defense in Carolina. And if you look at positions that are available, especially by free agency the next 2 years, a lot of the impact players are on the blue line. This year it's Hamilton. Next year, if they don't sign, guys like Seth Jones and Colton Parayko and Darnell Nurse are unrestricted free agents. So there's a lot of good depth defensemen out there too. So I think that's the position that's going to be key, and I think that's the position Seattle's going to target, and teams are going to have to work knowing that.
What are we, a month away from the expansion draft?
Yes, I think it's June
21st.
The draft is the 20th. Yeah, the draft is the 23rd, right? So yeah, it's 2 days before that.
Okay.
I think the list has to be in on the 17th, if I've got that right.
That's when Seattle gets the exclusive window. They get 3 days of an exclusive window to talk to people.
So we are a month out from that date. So exactly a month out. Okay. We shall see. Elliot, good workout, good interview. Great job, as always.
Thanks, guys.
Good job
Have
on
a
the back
great
deck.
weekend.
Way to go.
Thanks very much, guys. I hope you heard the birds chirping. I hope that added something.
It did
Perfect.
add something. Yeah, it was nice. Elliot Friedman.
I assume they were Blue Jays, I guess.
I think it was a Zen interview, hearing the birds. It was nice.
Right.
Very nice.
They're just like the Blue Jays. They do everything great for 7 innings, and the last 2 it just doesn't work.
Wow. Wow.
They're getting better, though.
Elliot Friedman, everybody, from Sportsnet and 31 Thoughts. Good stuff from him, as always. Willie, we'll come back and discuss that athletic article that you just referenced, and we will do that on the other side. But first, I'm going to talk to you about, that golf major, the third major of the year that's coming up this weekend. And DraftKings, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is giving you a shot to land one on the green. It's something I strive for when I play golf. It happens every once in a while, but you know what? The pros, these guys, this weekend, they're going to be hitting the green a lot. And this week, DraftKings is giving you 100-1 odds on Bryson DeChambeau to sink at least one birdie this weekend. Now, if this was me, if I had to sink a birdie, you're in trouble. But for Bryson DeChambeau, this is a really, really good bet that you should jump on. If you haven't tried DraftKings Sportsbook, this is the time. That's 100-1 odds on Bryson DeChambeau hitting a birdie during the tournament. That's 100-1 odds on an offer like this. It doesn't come around very often, so get in there, sign up right now, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app, and use the code 1025GAME. When you sign up, turn $1 into $100 in free credits if DeChambeau sinks a birdie this weekend. Use that code again, 1025GAME, to turn $1 into $100 in free credits for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. You must be 21 years of age or older. Tennessee only. Restrictions do apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. It's NASCAR weekend here in Nashville. Be sure to get your tickets for Saturday and Sunday as tickets are going fast. Kids 12 and under get in free on Friday and Saturday, plus experience the post-race fireworks on Friday night after the truck race. RV camping for NASCAR weekend is still available. For more information, visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com. Be sure to tune in for the Ally 400 NASCAR Cup Series race on Sunday right here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Coverage begins at 1:30. The race begins at 2:30. So keep that in mind. Back here on Darren, Daunic, and Chase. Darren McFarland and Willie Daunic here with you today because Chase has been at the Nashville Superspeedway. He'll be back on the show tomorrow. So you referenced it at the end of the interview with Elliott Freeman. By the way, really good stuff from him.
Awesome.
As always. There was an article on The Athletic, and you just heard it. We are exactly a month out today from teams having to submit, who they're going to protect. A month from today, July 17th, is when they're going to have to submit their protect list from the Seattle Kraken. Who are they going to protect? And then Seattle's got 3 days, right? Is it 3 days? The 3-day window?
I think the 3-day window, and I think the 21st is the day that it comes down. The actual picks are made on the 21st.
So I think they had, 3 writers? Was it 3 writers?
They had 3 writers that all took a crack at it, and it says 7.0. So that leads me to believe this is the 7th time they've done that. I didn't see the other 6 that they did, if that's the case. But this was my first time looking at anything beyond the Predators. We've spent a lot of time since the end of the season, Darren, sort of asking ourselves, okay, let's put a list down. Who would you protect? Who are your 8 or whoever it is? We believe that they will select 8 skaters and not 3 defensemen and 7 forwards, which is an option, although I don't think they will take that option. So we don't know what the list is going to be, and neither do these guys, right? These guys were taking a crack. I say crack. I'm not trying to make a pun.
I know.
It is the Kraken, but they're taking their shot based on the list they think of who's going to be available. For example, one of the guys, their selection from the Predators was Victor Arvidsson. And right now, I think it's very debatable as to whether Victor Arvidsson will be protected or not. I think there's a scenario where maybe he would, but I think there's a good chance they might go ahead and protect him, right? That's one example. But I thought it was interesting that all 3 guys had a different guy that if they were Seattle, they would take. But it all is in the context of where do you get your defensemen from other teams, or where do you get your forwards from other teams? Which teams are you selecting goalies from? For example, one guy had Cam Talbot and Jake Allen as the 2 goalies that they ended up with.
I saw somebody had Malcolm Subban from the Blackhawks.
Somebody had Malcolm Subban. So these are different philosophies. Do you want the veterans? Do you want a young goalie like Subban who maybe still has another level to him? These are all really important questions. So one guy took Victor Arvidsson. One guy took Yakov Trenin, who that's an intriguing one to me. Like, he's a guy that certainly he has flashed some things that might have you saying, what would that guy look like in another 2 or 3 years, right? That's where the Seattle team could be sitting there going, give me the guy that long range could have a big impact on my team, and I could get him inexpensive for a while. And maybe one guy from one team doesn't work, but another guy hits it big. Vegas certainly had some stories like that of guys who jumped to the next level when they got a chance to play more. And then a third guy took the very safe choice of Calle Jarnkrok, who we are pretty certain will be unprotected because he only has 1 year left on his deal. Maybe they're not going anywhere. He could be a great piece to trade for a draft pick to get another asset down the road. But so none of those really surprised me. They did mention a Matt Duchene kind of thing. A couple of them did. They think that the price would be for Seattle to take Duchene would be a first-round pick with him. So that's a question I had coming out of this is, would you give them a first-round pick to take Duchene? And they add Johansson in there as an option as well. Is that something you'd be willing to stomach? Or
Boy,
are you like, I got to call you back?
Oh, I think it's
But if
definitely.
they
I've
hang up
gotta
the
call
phone
you
and say,
back.
okay, you want us to take Duchesne? Give me your first round pick. There's your pain, but that's the price you would need to pay.
Oof. That is, yeah, that's. I mean, I'm not surprised. That would not be a crazy price tag to take that contract.
Vegas actually did that a number of times. You heard Elliott say, because we talk about it backwards and forwards here, the Predators have some contracts that are not going away anytime soon. The players aren't getting any younger. They would like to get a little younger and free up some cap space. But you know what's interesting is you hear Elliott talk about it, and you read this article, almost every team has got contracts like that. They have the same mindset because the cap is flat.
And it's going to be for a while.
Right? Now, there's some teams that are already full-on rebuild, like Ottawa, that are, they got plenty of money. They got a lot of young players. They're in a different spot. But a ton of teams have, that just the players' names change, but the contracts are the same kind of thing. A guy that's got 4 or 5 years left on his contract, not really living up to it. You'd like to move it forward, but it's not like they're just going to snap this guy up. That's what's interesting about Arvidsson, right? I think if he's eligible, that might be an easy one for Seattle to jump up and grab. But do you want to give away Arvidsson for nothing?
What do you think you could get for Arvidsson on the market?
That's a good question. He makes about half of what, a little more than half of what Duchesne and Johansson make.
Mm-hmm.
He's younger than Duchesne.
Yep.
He's got wear and tear, as we know, but is he a bounce-back candidate? I think he is, right? And he signed for a few more years, 3 or 4 more years, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, he's never played anywhere but Nashville, so it's easy to get caught up in how it just ended, sort of an injury that plagued the end of his season. It wasn't a great year for him. He's got now back-to-back seasons where they weren't great years. Injuries played a part in both of them. But I hesitate to just lose him straight up
What do you make of Trennan being on the list?
Trennan is a really interesting one. First of all, I didn't know he was eligible to be picked because he doesn't have a lot of service time. He was still a rookie, but because he's been a pro for a certain amount of time, and I'll tell you who else is available to be picked is Tanner Jeannot. I didn't know that until Adam put that in the thing. And there's so many little nuances of when you were drafted and how long you've been professional. It's not simply how many games you've played in the league. But those are intriguing guys, right? Because we know what impact they had, both of those guys, Jeannot and Trennan had on the late season surge. They were huge.
Yeah,
and they're cheap.
I would not let Trennan go. That's just
so you would almost protect him.
I mean, I just wouldn't let a young look. Tanner Jeannot is a great story, but I don't know how much Seattle. I mean, it's one thing for us to sit here and talk about Tanner Jeannot, but I don't know how much he's on Seattle's radar. I mean, I obviously wouldn't want him to go anywhere, but I really think long and hard. If you think you're going to lose Trennan, then yeah, I just would not lose him. I think pause this for just a second. I think one thing that stood out to me is how many dang goalies were on this list. Chris Drieger was on the list.
Chris Drieger is an option. Yeah, there's no question.
was on the list. I mean, like several of the writers taking Drieger, thinking Seattle might take Drieger. So it was pretty interesting how many goalies were on this list. But getting back to the Predators, I'll tell you what, this is there are very few times when I'm just like, man, I'm at a kind of a loss. I'm not envious of the decisions that have to be made because these are tough. I don't know where you go. I mean, you can't protect everybody. You're going to lose somebody. So what is – everybody knows what they would like to have happen, but what if that's not on the table? So what are you willing to lose of the guys that aren't, that we're not discussing? If it's guy like Callie Yarncroke, if it's a guy like Trennan, if it's a guy like Sissons. I mean, what if it's those guys?
Sissons is another guy that very well could be
Although he
available.
did make the list, but he could be available.
Very well could be available. Well, let's just leave it to the guys who on this article selected. Darren, I'm hearing you kind of say, ooh, you'd almost rather lose Arvidsson than Trennan?
Yeah, I would.
Again, these are really tough choices. I don't want to lose either one of them, but
I know.
You're going to lose somebody.
Right, that's the
It's
thing.
like having to vote somebody off the island in Survivor, right? It's like, well, I got to make a tough call here.
I just think because of the contract situation, it's really more about it's more about the contract situation. Like
it's your overall cap health.
With the flat cap for several years to come.
Trennan's a big asset because he's inexpensive.
And younger, and they've got to be able to shed one of these contracts. Obviously, everybody knows the two big ones. We get that, but what if that's not in the cards? So to me, one of the bigger contracts has to go, and that's really what it comes down to with me.
And that's what
it's
Seattle,
not really about not believing there can't be a bounce back in what you said. It's
Right.
not really about that. It's about they've got to find a way to get rid of either a big contract or a bigger contract.
And Arvidsson is kind of a tweener, right? He's not a total big, quote-unquote, big contract. There's term, but it's a sort of reasonable term for a guy that is not too far removed from 30-goal seasons.
No, actually, the way I'm looking at it is bigger is not bigger than big. Bigger is just saying it's a bigger contract. Big is the ones at the top, the $8 million contracts.
Right.
Bigger as in, hey, that's bigger than the $2 million a year that Yarncroke makes, right? It's bigger than what Tridden makes, which is I think less than $1 million. So what's he make? $750, something like that. So bigger, one of the bigger contracts, but not one of the big contracts, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Elliott had great perspective on that, and he was saying Seattle has figured out that these teams all across the league are in this predicament. And so they're going to take a few big contracts. The question is, who do they take them from? So you can create competition. Here's our going rate to take the contract off of your hands. Now, let's just take Matt Duchene, right? We know what his flaws are. We're looking at him under the microscope. It's been disappointing, his outburst, but he's still a very talented player. Some of these teams are trying to ship out people that can't play.
Right.
It's a contract of a guy who's injured or who's been injured, and you're just trying to dump it, right? I would think that at least Matt Duchene's bringing something to the table where Seattle could say, okay, I'm taking a flyer, I'm taking the contract, but I might get a guy that bounces back and scores me 30 goals, right? There's something to be said for that, as opposed to I'm trying to think of a couple other guys that are on this list of, take this guy and we'll give you this guy. There were some guys that Vegas took that couldn't play anymore. I think it was what was the guy's name for Columbus? Not Nathan Horton, but a different guy.
Well, wasn't Van Riemsdyk on there for Philadelphia?
Van Riemsdyk is on this list,
right?
And he's a guy that
he was a guy who was on waivers, right?
Yes,
passed through waivers,
right? And he's healthy. I would put him in kind of a Duchene category, not living up to the contract, but a guy that's got some talent and has done big things in the league before.
But what category you put him? I mean, Philadelphia was willing to literally put him on waivers in the middle of the season. So where do you think? What is he in this what we're talking about? Is he a guy that can still play, or is he a guy that's way overpaid and can't play anymore?
He will still play.
No, I know, but I mean, can he produce?
Well, that's the question. There are some of these guys who actually cannot play, period, like physically can't play, that they're trying to get rid of the contract.
Now, I think he came back and played pretty well once he passed through waivers and was back
like James
on the ice.
Neal was waived. There were a number of guys
right.
that are at that age that just they were just trying to see. Gostis Bear was another one, remember? I'm trying to think of an example of a guy on this list. I'm thumbing through this thing of where a player really has been not productive at all for a long time. So what is the going rate? Is it you give us an extra first-round pick? Okay, we'll talk. they've got to take a few of those, right? So would they? How do they feel about Duchesne? How do you try to vet that? Because if you play your cards right, Seattle, once again, like Vegas, is going to be in a very good position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen anything that's really jumped out at me that it's basically, and I hate to do this, but it's basically the Kyle Turris, right? It's that guy where it seems like, not sure, still got anything left.
Right.
Can still play at this level.
Right. And Duchesne's not in that category, right? And neither is Duchesne has got a lot to bring to the table in comparison to a category like that.
Yeah, nothing's really jumping out at me. Van Riemsdyk is close to that because
he's got 2 more years at $7 million a year.
But
Van Riemsdyk.
But he did produce.
That's the thing about Duchesne's contract is it's for a lot longer. It's what, 5 more years?
Mm-hmm. Yep. What do you make of it? Where do you stand?
Well,
are you willing to let a guy like Trennan? You okay with that? If he were to go, Calle Yarncroke,
I think
Victor Arvidsson.
Okay, let's shift it around. Here's another discussion I'm sure they'll have in the room. Who's more valuable long term, Trennan or Carrier? Because that is one thing you could do. You could protect Fabro.
As much as I'm a big Trennan fan, I also said I need to see Carrier again. Are we positive 100% it translates to next season? And it looks like that. But there's something. There's something like you do not earn that much playing time that fast and be put in all spots and everybody's comfortable with it. And, oh, by the way, it looks like he's comfortable with it and not think that he can't do the same thing next year or moving forward. So I'd probably have to lean toward Carrier. He was playing big spots. Clearly they trusted him. Clearly they had no issues with Carrier being out there in whatever. They didn't care about his minutes. They didn't care about special teams. They didn't care about what deep pairing. He was on the first deep pair. They didn't care. It didn't bother them. So there was a lot of trust in him, and I mean a lot. So I have to believe he passes everything with flying colors, and there's no reason why he couldn't duplicate, another season. He couldn't do it again. But it is a small sample. It is. But it's not like Trennan's got this, gigantic sampling.
Another thing that came out of this article was they felt like Seattle could put together a team that safely could be in that 85 to 87 point range and maybe even closer to 90. Now, Vegas, in comparison, what do they have, 110 their first year?
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen, but once again, if they hit it big, what are the odds that they do something? But I think that's a good neighborhood. Fringe playoff team the first year, where if people said that for Vegas, people would like laugh and say, come on, give me a break. There's no way. But not only did they make the playoffs, they got all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. It's not like they snuck into the playoffs, right? They were a great team all the way through. So they're looking at the players that they project to be available, and they're thinking somewhere along the lines of 87 to 90 points, which would put you kind of right on the outside looking in, probably.
Why don't you tell everybody about Loan Pronto?
All right, we'll talk Loan Pronto. Now, here is what I've been emphasizing a lot this week, and that is your value of your home in our listening area. It's very high right now. You can take advantage of that with Loan Pronto because if you want a home equity loan, you're in the position to take out tens of thousands of dollars from your home equity to reinvest either in your own home on a renovation project, a home improvement project, maybe a back deck, something you've been envisioning for a long time. You've got that available to you by using Loan Pronto. But also, if you need to pay off some credit card debt or some other kind of debt, you need money right now, it's a great option. Loan Pronto wants to help you with it, and here's the best part. It's not a hassle. They've streamlined it. It's digital. You'll be done in 2 weeks, and you'll be really happy to have that money in your hand that you can utilize that you need right now. Take advantage of the situation you're in our listening area. Home values are high. Loan Pronto. Give them a call about the zero-cost refi. 615-499-5780. That's 615-499-5780. Or go to loanpronto.com. It's really simple. Make that one phone call or jump on the website, learn more about it, and you can be on the road to having the cash you need right now to address some things or reinvest in your home and add more value. It's a great game to play long term. Loan Pronto, the zero-cost refi, 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender. NMLS 1661781. Subject to lender approval. Not all loans eligible for zero costs.
Well, not yet. I mean, we got a little bit longer. By the way, don't forget, 94.9 is your home for Nashville Sounds baseball. Tonight, Sounds take on Gwinnett Stripers. That's, of course, the AAA affiliate for the Bravos. Pregame show begins at 5:50. First pitch at 6:05. Nashville Sounds baseball on 94.9, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans and 312 Pizza Company. They've got a big homestand coming up very soon. And I think it is time for me to get there. I've taken in one game this year, the Smokies game in Knoxville/Pigeon Forge. By the way, did you know that they're going to build? I asked Vince about this because I had heard stuff about it. I was like, nah, go to that stadium. It's a nice little ballpark there, AA ballpark. And I'm like, nah, that can't be true. And I asked Vince, and he said it's absolutely true. And I think we talked about it. We did a little bit on Monday. They're going to build a new ballpark downtown Knoxville. Yeah. Because that one is out at the Pigeon Forge exit.
Correct. So who plays there?
Who's going to play at the Smokies?
If they build a new downtown ballpark, who would play there?
Vince was telling me they'll do tournaments and stuff. They'll just do stuff. They'll figure out other alternative stuff to do there. Because I asked him that. And I was like, what are they going to do with this? Maybe they could turn it into, I don't know. But he said they would keep it. That is a real thing. They want a ballpark downtown in Knoxville. So
it's a good idea. But it's a predicament, in terms of trying to get a minor league team, because we know the minor leagues have shrunk.
Yep.
And we know that park out in Pigeon Forge, you tell me, is it a nice place to come watch a game? Are they drawing pretty well? And they're established as a double-A city, right?
Well, remember, I typically go there on Wednesday nights. So, I don't know if Wednesday night's a big draw or not. I mean, it's, is
it a nice park?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But it's all about location. Location. They want something in downtown Knoxville. I mean, it's not, I guess, what would that be? What's the equivalent? I mean, that's further than downtown to Murfreesboro. That's further than that, isn't it? I mean, it's probably
that's a good ways.
45 minutes.
Got to be.
Right?
And I'm sure they see what, the Sounds are doing. They see what Louisville's got. They see what Chattanooga's got. Chattanooga's got a great AA park right there in the middle of downtown. They see what it can do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where, it's too bad. You'd have to wind back the clock. I don't know all the details, but they used to play not in the middle of downtown, but they had an old park that was AA park for generations. And for whatever reason, they couldn't make the deal back then to build a downtown park. I wonder what they didn't see back then when it was time to do that. And instead, these guys kind of beat them to it. They built the park out on the outskirts there, and like you said, it's a long way from a lot of the people, right? I guess tourists. I would imagine tourists make up a pretty decent size of their ticket revenue. Is that fair to say?
I would think so. I mean, that's a busy exit,
right?
So I would assume so. I mean, we always end up there, and certainly.
But as a municipality, the city of Knoxville, you would have thought that there might have been a better push to, hey, wait a minute, we're not letting it go out there. Let's keep it in the city.
Yeah.
Let's make it a big thing for our people to do right in the heart of the city.
Well, you get the sweetheart deals, and that's, remember,
right.
A lot
the
of
land.
Arenas and stadiums. That was a phase, and it's like, hey, come on out here. We'll give you this. Here you go. Look at this plot of land.
It's a unique spot, because of the tourist area that it's around.
It's right off the exit. It's very visible, right? It's got a good location. If you're talking about just visibility, it's not like some ballpark tucked away somewhere. Great visibility. It's right off the exit. You can't miss it. But it's 45 minutes from Knoxville. So anybody who's living in that area, you gotta want it. You got to drive out a good ways to go see a AA baseball game. So it seems like all signs are pointing towards that is going to happen. By the way, I just saw the Predators tweet out that they congratulated Philip Forsberg and his new fiance, Erin. They just got engaged. So congratulations to them.
I thought there's some whispers of that the last day or two. I guess it's officially reported. Good for them.
Yeah. By the way, they were the couple that had the funny video that we referenced and we talked about with Forsberg.
It was around this time last year, wasn't it? Where nobody could do anything. Everyone was trying to figure out how do we entertain ourselves, and they had She was on the unicycle.
Unicycle, yep.
He was
And they were on a basketball court.
kicking the soccer ball off the backboard, and she was catching it and
Yep.
slamming it.
Yep.
That was it's quite a performance.
Certainly was. Good stuff. We'll get you a little bit closer to that NASCAR weekend tomorrow. We got a lot more ground to cover tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. It's a beautiful day. It is hot out there, but once you're back with us tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., stay tuned. Stillman and Company's next.